Psych, y'all thought y'all were gonna get a full. I forgot to take this away. You'll find out why that popped up later. So guys, welcome in. I apologize for the late start. First and foremost, just want to say that. Let's just say trying to facilitate. And by the way, if I'm lagging, guys, let me know because I've got like a million things plugged into this stream, and it's certainly possible that I will be lagging to some extent or another. But welcome in, Joe Dirt. Welcome in, Wes. Apologize for the delay, guys. Y'all know what's going on in my life. I've got a lot of stuff going on. First and foremost, I want to deeply, sincerely apologize for not streaming Monday, Wednesday, Friday like I have said I would. To make matters even more crazy, I was trying to figure out the whole TikTok setup. I told you guys that the way I want to stream moving forward is I want to integrate TikTok into this platform. Well, through 15 different aux cables later, I finally got it sorted out. Just so you guys understand just how convoluted this really is, which, by the way, you might notice that my eye, it's this eye that's red. I don't know. You might notice one of my eyes are red or more red than the other. That's because I've been rubbing the crap out of them. Probably need to take contacts out. Anyways, I'm losing my mind right now. So what I had to do is I had to plug it into my phone, to my microphone, out into my computer, and then now that splits the audio signal. But I still need to be able to stream to you guys. So I have my cable hooked up from my microphone into my mixer, which then my mixer goes into my computer. But that's not all. I had to figure out now the video signal. How to get the video from my phone into Streamlabs. How to download a casting software. So just so you guys know how much time and effort it takes to really figure out this puzzle, when it finally works, you're excited about it. So today, the goal is that we are going to be doing a live stream on TikTok and on YouTube and on Twitch. So, Wes, my man, I love it. So, yeah, the thing about it is you know, I'm trying to do what I can with what limited I have, but we're going to be streaming to TikTok here shortly. What I'm going to do is I want to kind of get everybody in here, get everybody excited, get everybody warmed up, and then we're going to jump into TikTok. Fun thing is, and fun fact, my wife and kids are not home today because they went to their mother's to, you know, see the grandparents and things like that. So we're going to be streaming uninterrupted for as long as we can go till no later than 11 Central Standard Time, and that is only for the fact that I've got homework that I've got to do, and it's due by midnight. Okay? So anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to watch a little bit of Caroline Levitt's terrible press conference, and then we're going to pivot into the TikTok Live. I already have it ready, pulled up on my phone, so if you see me look down over here, it's because I'm looking down at my phone for TikTok. When we do that, I want you guys to know I am going to be kind of preoccupied with trying to get us up on the TikTok feed. So I will address some of you guys, but understand that my time is going to be taken a little bit away to try to focus on TikTok. Okay, because the way TikTok works is it's really aggressive. You need to get a lot of likes, you need to get a lot of shares, and it boosts you into the algorithm. Otherwise, you're left with like 15 viewers and not a whole lot of MAGA that come into TikTok. If all fails on that, we will go into a panel room and we will adjust accordingly. But there is a panel room that we can kind of react to a little bit. We tried doing that last time. It kind of was really terrible. But we'll see how this goes. Anyways, I don't want to bore you guys any more than I've already bored you. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to do one more thing, and then we will get started. I need to pull up YouTube real quick and see how things are going on that end. Let's see. Give me 1 second, fellas. All right, cool. Alrighty, all right. So there we go. Okay. Without further ado, let's jump into this Caroline Levitt press conference. This was a absolute disaster. Am I lagging on y'all's end? Okay, no, I shouldn't be. Cool. All right. Make sure we're good. Okay, here we go. We'll talk amongst ourselves. Great, Joe. Hey, Joe, welcome back in, man. I really appreciate you coming back. All right, so let's go ahead and watch this Caroline Levitt press conference.
Currently undergoing his routine and long-scheduled physical at Walter Reed Medical Center.
Which they won't release the results of. We already know that, right? Thanks, Wes. Yeah, they won't release the results. Remember, Donald Trump said he was going to release his cognitive results like five years ago, and he never did. Okay, they never will. Oh, there's double audio coming through. Okay, hold on. Let me find it. Hold on.
And we will have a readout from the White House physician. Last night, Christina Karolina arrived back safely in the United States after being detained in Russia for more than a year.
Here's the sad part about this. They're going to brag about how they've brought back a Russian, right? All right, thank you, Wes. So here's the thing. They want to talk about how they're bringing back a Russian. And we'll get to this. We'll get to this response later. But it is amazing to me to see that they're going to ignore Mr. Garcia that's in El Salvador that the Supreme Court has said bring back. Spoiler alert, by the way. They care more about bringing back this person from Russia than they do about the person that the Supreme Court said to come back. Let's continue to watch this.
Since Inauguration Day, President Trump and his team have secured the release of more than 40 detained Americans abroad. This is more than half of the number of Americans released by Joe Biden in 4 years. And President Trump has brought these Americans home in 80 days. This administration will continue to work hard to bring Americans home from around the world. As I've said before, and I will say it again today, everybody in this room has access to the most transparent and accessible president in American history. The cabinet meeting yesterday was further proof. President Trump asked each secretary to provide an update to all of you.
Which, by the way, that was an absolute and utter disaster, by the way, yesterday. Yeah, they held a cabinet meeting. And again, it was really cringe. They were all like, yes, dear leader. Yes, it was. It's a pleasure serving with you, my dear leader. It was kind of weird. Did they come back in a hot air balloon? Who knows?
In the media on the critical work they are doing at their respective agencies to deliver on his agenda. And according to new reporting from the Washington Times, who I believe is in this room today, President Trump answered nearly 100 questions from the press, all of you, during his first 3.
And see, I've been saying this. Donald Trump does not need to be taking these questions from the press because every time he does, he manages to somehow tank the economy. Now, it has rebounded a little bit, but I've been telling people this. Look, the market goes up, the market goes down. The market goes up, the market goes down. We saw just this past week how volatile the stock market can be. Okay, but what people don't understand is that the reason it's so volatile is because of the fact that Donald Trump keeps going back and forth on these things. And I want people to understand the stock market is separate from inflation. Okay, job losses and inflation and everything else, those are going to happen incongruent to the stock market. The stock market is certainly kind of a freak out indicator because of people's 401ks, retirements, things like that. But don't get deceived that if the stock market does this, don't get deceived that the stock market goes like this, that all of a sudden your prices are going to go like this. Okay? They're going to go up. They're still going to go up. Exactly, Wes. They love stability. And it flows, ebbs and flows based upon what they're able to get from this administration. So 1 minute they may say, hey, look, this is great. And the next minute they say it's not great. And then it fluctuates. But understand that this fluctuation is separate from the prices. Just want people to understand that. Don't get excited when you see MAGA getting excited about the stock market going up. Yes, it's going up, albeit it is still down from its peak 3 months ago. Okay.
Open press cabinet meetings this year. That's nearly 20 times the number answered by Joe Biden in cabinet meetings during his entire 4 years in office. In more excellent economic news that was released yesterday, the Consumer Price Index report showed inflation fell to 2.4% in March, smashing expectations for the second.
Okay, so first of all, they're citing Breitbart. Okay, there's actually a lot to unpack here. Okay, first and foremost, they're citing Breitbart, which is hilarious, might I add. Second, they look at the CNBC article saying inflation rate eases to, and this was published April 19th. So this was or not 19th. That's the 10th. So it was yesterday. Inflation rate eases to 2.4% in March, lower than expected, core at 4-year low. Let's be very clear here. March, the CPI numbers or April that came out was due to March. Okay. Yes, inflation rate has eased. Okay. I'm not surprised too much by this. Give it time. Okay. Give it time. Just like you said, give it time for Donald Trump's policies. Give it time. This inflation is absolutely coming, and it will come. And then you can see here, inflation fell last month as gas prices dropped sharply. Assigned prices, I'm interested in this too. This AP article, which by the way, they would not actually let the AP journalists in there, of course, all they do is compare to Biden. That's what MAGA does. Let me see here, because I'm curious, this AP article. Inflation fell last month as gas prices dropped sharply. AP. Assigned prices cooled. Hey, look, you know what's interesting to me? This is how they deceive you. Okay? I'm not going to pull up the article, but I can tell you the title of the article. Okay? Well, I know that too, Joe. But this is the funny thing. See how it cuts off here? Assigned prices, blah, 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 blah. The actual article, okay? Let me show you the article. Let me see if I can pull this up in a here, I can just pull it up. It's not that big of a deal. Here, let's do this. Look at this. Inflation fell last month. A sign prices cooled before tariffs. Cooled before tariffs. They don't want you guys to know. And if you read into the article, it actually talks about this. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core prices rose 2.8% compared with a year ago, down from 3.1% in February. Yet economists warned, and the data is mostly backward-looking and likely to be overtaken by the impact of the tariffs that Trump has left in place, including huge duties on China. You see how they love to capture these articles and the little headlines, but I love how they cut off this little part here. I love how they cut that off. So again, this is deceptive as all get out by the Trump administration here. And also the funny thing about this little picture, by the way, guys, I don't know if you can see this. Okay. This says September of 2022 and this says December of 2023. What they inadvertently just did was admit that Joe Biden decreased inflation.
Month in a row. This marked the first drop in consumer prices dating all the way back to the COVID pandemic. Prescription drug prices saw the largest monthly decline on record. Prices for airfare, used vehicles, and car insurance all decreased as well. And energy prices fell 2.4% in March, driven by plummeting gas prices around the country. Also yesterday, House Republicans answered President Trump's call to move forward the budget resolution and officially set the stage for the passage of one big, beautiful bill. The American economy will boom after this bill is passed.
And this, like, renaming of the bill to fit, like, Donald Trump's catchy phrases is kind of weird. Hey, by the way, on this note, guys, listen, if you guys could hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. One thing I've noticed is I think that by me putting MAGA instead of Donald Trump in the title, I wonder if it's attracting less people. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm curious to see if this test works. Let me go ahead and edit something real quick. Let's do this. I'm curious to see if this changes anything. There you go. Let's change this. Let's see what that did. Because I've noticed that I'm like, the it's kind of quiet in here in terms of the MAGA trolls. All right, let's try to see if that attracts some flies. Okay, let's back to the video.
Rest of the president.
It worked! It worked! Oh my god! Oh my god! That was hilarious. Wes, the moment I put it in there, my viewers like spiked. It's the name. It's something to do with the name. It's like the name tracks flies. All right, let's go ahead and continue watching this.
Pro-growth agenda goes into effect. The largest tax cuts and deregulation in history, coupled with our energy industry unleashed and renegotiated trade agreements that put America first, are the ultimate formula to usher in the golden age of America. On that note, more than 70...
I'm not even playing with you, Wes. That is wild. That is wild. Literally, guys, welcome in, by the way, all new viewers who are hitting here. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. We will be doing call-ins soon. That is weird. Anyways, all right, let's continue.
55 countries have now reached out to the Trump administration, eager to address the trade issues that have exploited America and hurt our workers in the process. The phones have been ringing off the hook to make deals. And these countries wisely heeded President Trump's warning not to retaliate, and as a result, they were rewarded with a 90-day pause and substantially lower reciprocal tariff rates during this period so potential solutions can be achieved. Past presidents just willingly accepted the failed status quo on trade that ripped off our workers and our companies. But that's not who this president is. He creates his own leverage and negotiates deals better than anyone else who has sat in the Oval Office before him. And that process is currently underway.
Yeah, Donald Trump is absolutely ruining our economy. Absolutely.
On another matter, the deadline for registration under the Alien Registration Act is today. All foreign nationals present in the United States longer than...
This is wild. Listen to this, guys. Listen to what they want to do. They want to do a registry of all undocumented immigrants. Keep in mind, this administration also wanted to go to the IRS to see what undocumented immigrants are paying into the IRS. Do you think that anybody that is an undocumented immigrant now is going to pay those voluntary taxes? Keep in mind, they're undocumented. They don't have to pay these taxes. But by going in and raiding the IRS to see which undocumented immigrants are doing there so they can track these undocumented immigrants down, they're not going to have these undocumented immigrants pay these taxes anymore. So tax revenue is going to go down. I would predict that our deficit is going to go up higher than we've ever seen it under this administration for numerous reasons. One of which is that I predict that through these Tax Cuts Act, for example, the first Tax Cuts and Jobs Act increased our deficit by about $1.9 trillion. What I expect to see is that with this new administration, you're going to see a loss in revenue also from an untapped area that people aren't really familiar with, which is undocumented immigrants. So we're going to see a loss in revenue pretty handedly. And we saw record tax revenue come in under the Joe Biden administration, by the way.
In 30 days must register with the federal government. Failure to comply with this is a crime, punishable by fines, imprisonment, or both. As President Trump and Secretary Noem have both said, if you register and you leave now, you choose to self-deport. You may have the opportunity to return later legally. But if not, you will be arrested, fined, deported, never to return to our country again.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing about this. Okay. The way that they're handling this, I told Sansold this. There is a point at which you as a MAGA or someone who supports Donald Trump has to draw a line in the sand. I drew a line in the sand on J6. I said, you know what? This isn't going to work. And I decided to say, hey, I'm getting off of this train ride because this is a wild ride. And there's still MAGA sitting on there. If this doesn't sit there, for all of the MAGA that's in my chat right now, by the way, if you're in my chat, we got 50 people in here. Please hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. Where is your line in the sand? Your actual stationary line, by the way. Because what you often find is a lot of this MAGA will sit there and say that this is my line in the sand, but then they continuously move that line. They move it and move it and move it. This is pretty bad. Okay? Yes. Do we want to get out undocumented immigrants who are violating our laws in the United States? Yes. I have already told people this. That, look, I believe that we should have undocumented immigrants being housed in our prisons here in the United States because I don't trust that the countries that they go back to are going to house them in an appropriate manner. But those are violent criminals. I wouldn't want somebody who's simply accused of jaywalking to be deported. Ryan Lawrence coming in here with the glorious, deep, insightful thoughts. You'll be eating your words in 3 months, idiot. Okay, how will I be eating my words in 3 months? We're already seeing some of Donald Trump's economic policies become a disaster. And all of MAGA has seen that Donald Trump has now put out there in the ether, oh, we've got 75 countries that are coming to the table. Keep in mind, this is because Donald Trump he saw the stock market tanking, he saw the bonds market going crazy, and was like, hey, look, I'm going to back off. But it was too late at this point. That ball is already rolling down the hill. And the only way we do not get a recession or a depression even, which I'm on the more side, at this point, I feel 80% confident of a recession and about 40% confident of a depression, is the only way we get out of this is if Donald Trump stops the trade war. That's it. That's the only way we get out of this. But Donald Trump saying in 90 days, I'll revisit this. And we all know how 90 days goes. Last time it was Liberation Day, right? We were supposed to be liberated. Okay. Yeah. He still implemented tariffs. And in fact, he's going back and forth with China. Right now, we got like 100, 140% tariffs on China. And China, instead of sitting there backing down, is like, okay, we'll play this game all day long. Do I hear 150, 150, 150, 150, 150? Oh, there's 175. And they continuously go up.
The Trump administration will continue to enforce our nation's immigration laws. We will not pick and choose which laws to enforce. We must know who is in our country for the safety and the security of our homeland and for all American citizens. I also have a note from the First Lady to share with you on this Friday. On Tuesday this week, First Lady Melania Trump celebrated the advancement of the Take It Down Act in the House Energy and Commerce Committee.
It was his plan all along. His rich buddies made millions after the pause. Yeah, pretty much, Way. What's up, Way? Sorry, you're wrong, and Trump knows far more than you. Okay, then he should release his cognitive results. Why hasn't he released his cognitive results?
The important legislation passed the committee with bipartisan support. And as you may remember, the president talked about this bill in his address to a joint session of Congress last month. The First Lady remains dedicated to her championing child well-being, ensuring that every young person can thrive, and of course, championing her Be Best agenda. We urge Congress to swiftly pass this important legislation. Here in our—
I haven't really looked at this legislation. I forgot what this one is. It's like the Children Be Safe Act. It might be a decent policy. I'd have to look at it more.
Our new media seat today, we have Jordan Berman. Jordan is a social media content creator and influencer and a lawyer who grew up breaking down the news from a neutral perspective. Jordan is the—
Anytime they say neutral, that just means like right wing, but they're like center right. Who gives a F about Christmas or the First Lady? What are you? Whitey, you gotta translate that a little bit better, bud.
The host of her own podcast called Unbiased Politics, where she dissects the top stories from the week from a legal perspective. Jordan focuses on bringing back real journalism from a nonpartisan perspective and has mastered explaining complex legal decisions to a mass audience in the short-form context. Her two biggest platforms are TikTok and Instagram, where she has roughly 500,000 followers on each.
What's up, Miss Mandy?
With that, please kick us off, Jordan.
Thank you. As you know, yesterday the House passed the SAVE Act, and many married women, soon-to-be married women, are concerned that the new voter ID requirements may inhibit.
Yes, Miss Mandy, I'm on YouTube. Is something wrong going on there? Because I'm on YouTube, and it announced it. So, and I'm watching it live right now on my other screen.
Their access to the polls.
Oh,
what assurances can you give women voters in America to ease their concerns?
Sure. Well, the SAVE Act, as you mentioned, was passed by the House yesterday. This is the safeguard.
Because, Wes, they believe that they still have the 18 to 29-year-olds, even though support amongst 18 to 29-year-olds in terms of favorability has significantly dropped. So, no notification. It should have sent out a notification, Miss Mandy. I'm not sure why it didn't. So, Facebook star takes the stage at the White House. Yeah, pretty much. What's up, I love?
American Voter Eligibility Act. I believe I'm getting that correct. And this act is a common sense measure. It would require proof of citizenship for voting in our elections. The Democrats have been fear-mongering about this bill, have been saying that married women, if their name has changed, they didn't change it on their identification, would not be able to vote. That is complete fallacy. There are outlined in the bill about how to avoid that. The president very much supports a common sense solution to ensuring that only citizens can engage in our elections.
citizens can only engage in our elections without this big, beautiful bill. Citizens have always been that way. It's always been that way. Citizens are only allowed to vote. And keep in mind, any of the undocumented immigrants that you believe do vote, that actually do vote, are based upon the state, and it's only for state and local elections. It's not for actual national elections. This is hysterical. This is not common sense. Common sense would say to leave it as it is and not convolute the process more than it already is. That's exactly what's happening right now.
Is critical to improving the integrity of our elections and also the trust that American citizens.
Hey guys, do me a favor. Look, we got plenty of people in here. Please hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Need to have in our electoral process. So the president supports this bill, and that is a myth that has been proven wrong by the text of this bill. And I believe some of the co-sponsors of the bill have been very vocal in addressing that. And certainly I myself, as a married woman, would not stand before this podium.
She is married to someone like almost twice her age, if not more, by the way. I have my personal takes upon that. And it, it's funny to me when they talk about Kamala Harris, right? When they talk about her and that judge or whatever it was in California, but they're going to ignore this. Her husband's been in politics for a very, very long time, by the way.
If the president did not support such a common sense measure.
Thank you. For my next question, I actually want to give a voice to the American people. I sourced a question from one of my listeners. Her name is Bryn. She is from Oregon. And she asked, what, if any, plans do you have, the administration, for the money that will be generated by tariffs imposed on foreign goods? How will the administration facilitate the development of American industries when many critical components, labor, parts, etc., are much cheaper and more feasible from foreign entities?
It's a great question from your listener, and I want to thank her for submitting it to you to ask. That's the part of the new media seat, is so that everyday Americans across the country have a voice in this room. So thank you again for being here. Thanks for the question. The president's point about his trade and tariff agenda is to bolster our manufacturing industries here in our country, to bring down the cost of living here in our country, and to ensure that we are maintaining critical supply chains here in America. We cannot be dependent on countries like China if we want this country to be strong and wealthy. So the president wants to restore wealth to America by shoring up these jobs here at home, which will result in good paying jobs and higher wages for the American public. And so Americans should trust in that process. He effectively implemented tariffs in his first term while driving down the cost of living in this country. And that's what he.
Hey, Cindy, what's going on? Welcome in, by the way. I'm so sorry, Vince. I want to watch this, but this administration makes my stomach hurt. Hey, I understand, Cindy. By the way, I do. But I want to say this, is that it's critically important that we watch the steps that are being taken so that we are informed of where we're going with this administration, right? And so when we're watching this, it's to try to see how they're responding to some of these things. And spoiler alert, they're not really responding to it too great. One of the things, too, is I would ask you to just hold on a little bit longer. I'm actually going to speed this up. It's only 21 minutes. And what we're going to do is at the end of this, we are going to do a call-in, but we're going to do it through TikTok. So I've managed to set it up. Hopefully it goes well. And we're going to try to do a TikTok debates. So keep an eye out on that. We're about to do that, but we're going to finish this up first. If you want, hit that like, subscribe, notification bell, Miss Sandy, by the time you leave, at the very least, so that you can continue to push this out to the algorithm. Will Romaine, forget Kamala. She was great. Levitt is a lying fool like Trump. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Will. Random Gaming, she's excellent at her job. She is a fool at her job. YD said, LOL, every American except AP, the most respected journalism, not responding. It's grandstanding. Yeah, it's definitely grandstanding.
He's focused on doing against. Thank you.
As a follow-up question, can I just ask, are there any specific ideas that the administration has as to what that revenue, specific tariff revenue, will be used for?
Yes, to the heart of your question, the president has spoke about the trillions of dollars that he expects in revenue from tariffs and how we can use it to pay down our debt and to ensure that we are no longer faced with a crippling national debt in the trillions that is going to bankrupt our nation for future generations. Yeah,
and the funny thing about this is that we've had the EU, Canada, Mexico, numerous other countries imposing tariffs right back onto us. So when they sit there and they're like, oh, we're going to make all this money. Yeah, that's assuming that manufacturers don't just close up shop or that they don't go to another country or something. And keep in mind, we just lost Microsoft. Microsoft was set to build 3 data centers in Ohio, and they just sent it back. They said, we're not going to do this. And I believe I had heard something, murmurings of Apple now trying to produce their cell phones in like India or something like that. This disaster, come on, man. What about the 4 prior years? The 4 prior years was like 10 times more amazing than what we're going through right now. And I can pull it up from earlier, but she kind of inadvertently admitted that, by the way. This is absolutely, yeah, exactly, too. This is absolutely way worse than the last 4 years. 100% YD. You got the IRA, the CHIPS Act, the Infrastructure Act, all of which, by the way, Donald Trump is keeping in place because he knows how good of an investment it was. When you hear about a chip manufacturer coming to the United States, that's because of Joe Biden, not because of Donald Trump. What did you Trump supporters expect? Exactly. What do they expect? They expected
so that money coming back.
And this is the thing. They flip-flop on this. They talk about how great these, oh, look at the tariffs. They're so great. And then when the moment these tariffs come in, they're like, oh, and they're like, oh, yeah, this is part of the plan. Yeah, we're good for it. But then the moment that those tariffs go right out the door and Donald Trump says, hey, 90-day pause, they're like, yeah, we won. And then Donald Trump says, psych, I'm going to put them back in place. And then they're right back to the beginning. We're like, oh, these tariffs are great. These tariffs are great. Donald Trump said, oh, yeah, we won. We won for the second time. It's like, what did you win? You didn't win nothing. Donald Trump has done this with, what was it, Cuba, I think it was, or Haiti, or whatever. Can't think of the word of it. But the one over there, and then the near Cuba area. You know what I'm talking about. I can't think of the name of it. It's dropped my brain. But there was that, and then there was Mexico, and then there was Canada. Remember, he pulled away because he was like, oh, I got the deal. I finally got what I wanted. I got my border security. And then all of a sudden he imposed them right back, and he kept talking about how he wanted to take over Canada, how he kept wanting to take over Greenland. He kept wanting to do this. It's constant back and forth, and this is exactly why the stock market is going nuts. But in a statistically one of the most successful turns post-COVID among incessant, 100%. 100%. It was a great
will make America in the green rather than in the red, which any small business owner across the country, I believe, can appreciate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kelly.
Okay.
Tomorrow there will be negotiations between the United States and Iran in Oman. What are the president's chief goals for that, and is he satisfied with how Iran is responding to this? They don't want direct face-to-face negotiations.
Yeah, so, by the way, what she's talking about with Iran, Donald Trump is basically saber-rattling with Iran. He's saying that they better come to a negotiation or else. And that or else seems to have implied potentially war with Iran.
Instead, sort of old school shuttle diplomacy where they're in separate rooms and messages are passed back and forth. So is the president comfortable with the arrangement there, and what is the chief objective?
Well, I have spoken to both the president and also his national security team who will be engaged in these discussions. These will be direct talks with the Iranians, and I want to make that very clear. I also spoke to the president just last night about his goal when it comes to Iran, and he has reiterated repeatedly to all of you publicly and also privately to his...
What do you love about this press secretary, Random Gaming? I don't understand that. Trade war, not a real war. Adam, first of all, I can point to 3 different instances in which we are very, 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 very close to an actual conflict, an armed conflict. 4 actually. There's one with the Houthis in the Middle East. We have the one with Iran. There's actually 5. There's also the Israel-Palestine conflict. There's that one. We also have one that's pretty close, and that's the Panama Canal. They have stationed some of their vehicles down there, some of their military assets down there to try to help train some of the Panamanians to get Chinese people out of the Panama Canal. We also have the fact that Donald Trump has said that he wants to take over Greenland, right? He's talked about droning certain cartel members that are in Mexico. So again, every single one of these actions, you got like a 1 in like 6, well, not 1 in 6. You have there's a pretty high likelihood that we are going to see a war break out before this, or a conflict, an armed conflict break out before this year is over with. We have no manufacturing facilities to make up for the issues from the tariffs in the U.S. Well, that too, Will. So we don't have a lot of the manufacturing structure here in the United States. But on top of that, the price to get American labor, and look, I hate, I hate the fact that there is child labor in other countries. And in some cases, they've changed some ways. Some countries have changed and become more humane. It's not always the way it used to be. But nonetheless, it is cheaper to manufacture things over in those other countries. And if we were to try to bring it back here, labor here in the United States is just patently it's higher. And so there's going to be increased expenses. They're going to have to invest in capital infrastructure here in the United States. And they're still going to have to get raw material from other countries that may be tariffed. Vince don't work so hard. Adam losing allies. Yeah, there's that too. How about you stop being great response, Delizion. Who let his conflicts get to this point? Donald Trump. He didn't have to. He got it to this point. What's up with both Dems and Repubs funding Israel? All but one congressman is taking AIPAC money. Do you feel like we're being pulled into another war in the Middle East? Crippled, I would say that we are being pulled into the Middle East, but I don't even know if it's inherently just Israel, right? I think we have the fact of Israel. We have the fact with the them bombing the Houthis. We have the fact of the Iranian conflict right now. And the sleeper one right now would be the conflict up there with Russia and Ukraine. Depending on how this peace deal goes and depending on what happens, Russia may push further and aggress further than Ukraine. But we'll see how that plays out. And again, the U.S. isn't going to get too involved with that, right? Donald Trump probably wants Russia to do something.
Team here at the White House, his ultimate goal and the ultimate objective is to ensure that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. The president believes in diplomacy, direct talk.
Well, I know there is some. I'm again, my Middle East, my foreign affairs knowledge is a little weak. So when we talk about the Houthis, I know that there is some relevance to that, right? Because I know that they're funded by Iran, I believe it is. And Iran is also funding some of that for the Israel-Palestine thing or something. But yeah, but still, either way, there's an armed conflict brewing over there. Whatever the reason may be, right? I think Trump is an enemy of this country. I don't know. Listen, I'm always cautious of using that kind of phraseology. I've even been kind of more light-handed on using some certain terminology. And the only reason I say that, let me explain this. The only reason I say that is because that I want us to use as best as we can our democratic processes to try to remove or try to halt some of the president's agendas, right? And that's what I want to try to see is that do what we can. And I just think that rhetoric, it's just not the greatest right now, right? I'm trying to do it in a very, because here's the thing. I want people riled up, right? I do want people to riled up. But we can't get so riled up we lose the plot. Does that make sense? No, you're good, Wes. That conflict has been going on since Obama. Yeah, I mean, it's been going on for a while. But again, it still doesn't change the fact that Donald Trump certainly is escalating some of these things. Adam, this needs highlighting to Trump voters to get over sparring against each other. Yeah. All right, let's continue.
Talking directly in the same room in order to achieve that goal. But he's made it very clear to the Iranians, and his national security team will as well, that all options are on the table, and Iran has a choice to make. You can agree to President Trump's demand, or there will be all hell to pay. And that's how the president feels. He feels very strongly about it.
All hell to pay, aka war. Remember all those MAGA that voted for Donald Trump because he was so anti-war? Remember that? Yeah. They now all of a sudden love this saber rattling, taking over countries, like Canada, Panama, and Greenland. They love that rhetoric, don't they?
Can you update us on Mr. Witkoff in Russia and what's happening with direct communications with Vladimir Putin?
I can confirm that Mr. Witkoff is in Russia to have direct communications with the Kremlin and with Vladimir Putin. This is another step in the negotiating process towards a ceasefire and an ultimate peace deal in Russia and Ukraine. As these negotiations are ongoing, I obviously will not get ahead of the president or his team, but I think the president has been quite clear that he's been continually frustrated with both sides of this conflict.
What's up, Master Liberty? What about Panama? The fact that, not J.D. Vance, Fox News guy, I can't remember, Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth went on a conference a few days ago and mentioned how he is sending military assets to Panama to help train some of the Panamanians so that they can get rid of the Chinese from the Panama Canal. So, yeah. Words aren't war. Trump threatened to nuke Russia last time he was president. Words themselves are not necessarily war, but armed conflict certainly could be. And we have already seen some moves towards that, at least certainly in the Middle East by some of the drone strikes in Yemen.
And he wants to see this fighting end. He wants the war to end. We believe we have...
Bruh, a lot of the talks about taking over Greenland and Canada, etc., are jokes. We know we won't ever take over Canada. Yeah, it was just like the Gulf of Mexico. Remember when he renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America? Remember that? Remember how that was just a joke, bro? It's just a joke. Tell me then why he continues to push it. Oh, is it to own the libs? Yeah, it's having real world consequences. So let's stop this whole authoritarian takeover of the entire world here. I would not be surprised if he tries to make a move for Mexico next. I thought we stopped the revolution building in Panama after last time. Well, apparently not enough. They still want to send some of the military assets down there. Who jokes about invading allies? That too, Tefs. So why is this weirdo in my feed? I don't know, Beaston. Welcome into the show, though. Please hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. Come on, you're comparing changing the name of a Gulf of invading another country. Biden renamed Mount McKinley. Worse than war. I didn't say it was worse than war. What I am saying is that everyone says it's a joke. I know this is hard for MAGA to comprehend this. Okay. But your logic is it's just a joke, bro. Like, he hasn't joked about things prior. Okay. He's already tried sending people to Greenland and has pushed even harder than he's ever pushed to try to acquire Greenland. Even when they've said, no, we don't want you. He continues to push. It's a joke, bro. It's a joke. Yeah, okay. Plus, pretty sure we can't get involved or take over Panama unless they violate the treaty. Master Liberty, see, here's the problem. In any other presidency, you might be right. But we're dealing with the Trump presidency, who is already trying to subvert the Supreme Court right now. Putin was just joking as well. Yeah, that too, right? Right, exactly, Jose. Putin was just joking as well until he did.
Leverage in negotiating a deal, to a peace deal, and we're going to use that leverage. And the president is determined to see this through.
So, thanks, Caroline. President Trump has said China wants to make a deal on tariffs. The president says he has a great relationship with Chinese President Xi. He's willing to speak with him directly. Why doesn't the president just pick up the phone and get this ball going?
All of the things the president just said are true. The president, as I said from the podium just a few days ago when I was up here, would be gracious if China intends to make a deal with the United States. If China continues to retaliate, it's not good for China. The United States of America is the strongest, best economy in the world, as evidenced by the more than 75 countries who have called the administration immediately to cut good deals. So the president wants to do what's right for the American people. He wants to see fair trade practices around the globe, and that's his intention and his goal.
So is he waiting for China to make the first move here?
I'm not going to comment on communications that are happening or may not be happening, or either way. We'll leave it to our national security team to get these discussions underway.
Stop
and as always, in the
fear-mongering.
effort of transparency,
Well, stop
we
being
will
an
provide updates,
authoritarian.
moving forward.
There
But
you
the
go.
president
How about
made
that?
very clear he's open to a deal with China.
Why is he optimistic that China's going to make a deal, or wants to make a deal, if they're not talking? Where's that optimism come
He's
from?
optimistic.
Hey,
Sean.
why would any of our allies work with us to isolate China in a trade war if we're treating friend and foe alike?
You'll have to talk to our allies who are reaching out to us. The phones are ringing off of the hooks. They've made it very clear.
They're ringing off of the hooks. You still have not provided a list of these 75 countries. Not a single one. It's not jokes, but personally, I'd prefer my president simply not joke about invading or taking over place. Exactly, Wes. Like, can we just not do that? How about we just don't joke about that and ruin our allies' relationship? How am I an authoritarian? Explain to me. When you want to start taking over individual countries and you're complicit in that, yeah, that's behaving like an authoritarian.
They need the United States of America. They need our
The
market.
fear-mongering is crazy. They're always getting caught in lies. Who's getting caught in lies? What are you talking about, VZ?
Markets, they need our consumer base. You saw Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the Oval Office with the president saying that he was going to bring down all of their monetary tariffs and their non-monetary tariff trade barriers as well. We've heard from South Korea. We've heard from Japan. The president has spoken to Vietnam. We have Italy coming to the White House next week. There's a reason for that, Sean, and it's because they need the United States of America and our business model and our markets to survive. And the president...
Not necessarily. They're coming here. Doesn't mean that they're trying to, like, all of a sudden beg. Like I said, is Italy in the EU? Is Italy part of the EU? Of the EU. Italy is part of the EU. And keep in mind, the EU imposed 25% tariff. So Italy is not coming to the United States because they need them. No, because the EU has already imposed 25% tariffs. By a vote, I believe, by the way, on those EU nations. You're right. We threaten our own citizens with fighter jets like Biden. Wait, who did we? Oh, you're talking about? Wait, who are you talking about? Extreme Nomad. I miss Joe Biden. Yeah, that too. Donald Trump likes getting his orange allies that have screwed us over time and time again, and they're actively taking away free speech from their people. Oh, almost kind of like Donald Trump is taking away free speech, right? Kind of like how he's doing that. Remember that? How he's picking up citizens from the street for simply protesting. What about that? Oh, or what about the fact that he's trying to put in place a unconstitutional First Amendment protected form of speech, like burning the flag? I don't agree with burning the flag. I don't particularly partake in that, but it is a protected, constitutionally protected form of free speech. How about that? 70 countries are you, and you know that Italy isn't going to be one of those countries. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Allies, I don't know what you're referring to there, Adam. Citizens? What are you talking about, citizens? Documented and undocumented citizens, all undocumented citizens, whoever you want to call them, right? They are still granted constitutional rights, by the way. They literally admitted to a crime. What are you talking about, Beast? Are you talking about the one where they talked about stock market manipulation or whatever? He doesn't do that. Yeah, I do this. I do the same thing. they aren't citizens, it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. They are still granted constitutional protections, just like me and you. The moment you step foot onto this country, it does not matter your citizenship status. You are afforded every single constitutional protection. Exactly, Wes. Based on personhood, not citizenship status.
Is using that leverage to our advantage. Michael.
Hey, thank you, Caroline. Two-part question. China, Beijing says it will simply ignore.
Okay, so I actually looked this up. Undocumented immigrants can buy guns. I had to look this up because I heard someone bring this up about they couldn't buy guns. They actually can. Let me look it up because I remember looking this up here. Let's see. Oh, where is it? Oh, wait. Have they changed it? Oh, here we go. Do the undocumented immigrants have the right to own guns? Let's see. I'm pulling it up here. Give me 1 second. Because I remember looking it up and they could. So this is from NBC Montana. Illegal immigrants can possess guns under Second Amendment federal judge rules. A U.S. District Court judge ruled earlier this month that completely prohibiting illegal immigrants from possessing firearms is a violation of the Second Amendment. The ruling issued on March 8th by Obama-appointed District Judge Sharon Johnson Coleman pertains to the case of illegal immigrant Heriberto Carvajal Flores. Was charged under Title 18, a measure preventing illegal immigrants from possessing firearms, had no criminal history or improper use of a gun, and therefore, according to the court, did not present a public danger when exercising the Second Amendment right. Ruling in New York State rifle, Bruin, which found New York State cannot constitutionally prevent anyone from carrying a pistol in public. The case, she said, established a framework for analyzing whether challenge firearm regulation violates the Second Amendment. So let me see here. Do they have this was March. Do they have anything? Let me see, what does this say? Is this a Supreme Court? A U.S. Appeals Court. 1 second. What the heck? You can't take away your freedom of speech, no matter who you are. A U.S. Appeals Court upheld a federal law that bars migrants who are in the United States illegally from possessing, rejecting arguments by a Mexican man convicted. A 3-judge panel of the New Orleans-based Fifth U.S. Court of Appeals said on Tuesday. Okay, so that was in August. Where did this go? So that was August. Do we have anything from... what is this one? This is November 18th. This sentence was announced by U.S. Attorney Kenneth Magnuson. This investigation was jointly conducted. I know what you're talking about, Sulin Hall. I saw that. I read that one from Reuters. That's the one I looked at. But that one was on August. I'm trying to see if there was an update to it. That's January 25th. I'm trying to find the one. Let me see if I can find an update because I'm curious now. Who was this? Because it went to an appeals court, but I don't know if it ever made it to. I don't know if it ever made it to the Supreme Court. Who is this? Jose Paz Medina Cantu? Is that what that is? There's August. I don't know if they ever tried going up to the thing. But it's interesting too because then the same thing is that there's nothing, like you said, Master Liberty. That is where the plain text reading says the people, which refers to the citizens, while persons refers to all people within the country. Wonder if the court properly measured precedent in text history and tradition test. I could be wrong, though. I'd have to look at this deeper because I could have swore. Well, here's December 16th. What is this? In the Supreme Court of the United States. Here we go. So they filed application. So to file a petition or writ or certiorari, whatever. Okay, so this might still be working its way through the Supreme Court because that was in December of last year. So I don't know if they'll take it up for it or not. So it's a kind of a gray area for undocumented immigrants, and that's fair. Depends on what they did to be prior to being arrested. Yeah, arrested people for protesting is taking away their free speech. It depends on what. I kind of agree with Beeson on this one too, Tefs. It depends on what they were arrested for, right? And again, even then though, right? If you're arrested now, look. Let's be very clear. if you're just simply protesting and you get arrested, kind of like what happened with Mahmoud Khalil, whatever happened with him, he was just, from my understanding, from everything I've read on it, now it's been a little bit since I've looked at it, he only got arrested for the simple fact of basically handing out flyers that allegedly had certain like ties. I haven't looked into all of it though. I need to look more into it. The college student that was kidnapped by ICE, also the other protesters. That too, Jose. All right, let's finish this up.
Any further tariff escalations from the U.S.? Does President Trump see this as China backing down? And as a follow-up to that, what do you say to people like Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary who say, you guys simply haven't tariffed China enough?
Look, the tariff rate on China remains where it was yesterday, at the 145% level. The president made it very clear when the United States is punched, he will punch back harder. And he hopes to make a deal that benefits the American worker and our companies that have been ripped off for far too long. And he's finally taking bold and courageous action to do that. You know, taking on China is, in the terms of trade and tariffs, is something that both Democrats and Republicans alike have spoken about for decades. President Trump is finally doing it.
Caroline, real quick, the president of El Salvador is coming to the White House on Monday. Does President Trump want him to bring Kilmar Abrego
This is very important, guys. Listen to this.
Garcia with him?
The Supreme Court made their ruling last night very clear that it's the administration's responsibility to facilitate the return, not to effectuate the return. I believe the Department of Justice.
So, for background, I just did a video of this on TikTok. What happened was Mr. Garcia was deported wrongfully and accidentally to El Salvador, even though a judge, an immigration judge, said do not deport him, thus violating his due process rights. Keep in mind, it was a unanimous Supreme Court decision that said you need to facilitate and effectuate the return of this gentleman to the United States. And they are still pushing back. I like what you said, Wes. Accidentally is a stretch, though. I would agree. At this point, they're just looking at somebody saying, you've got brown skin. We are going to deport you. That's how they're approaching this. It's very, very, very reckless. Very reckless.
Just filed another brief in the lower court. I would defer you to that for any updates. But as you mentioned, President Bukele will be here at the White House on Monday to talk about the cooperation that is at an all-time high, and we very much appreciate
all that cooperation, yet you can't seem to get this guy back to the United States. Spare me.
President Bukele and El Salvador's cooperation and the repatriation of El Salvadorian gang members who the previous administration allowed to infiltrate our country. Sure.
Thank you very much, Caroline. The president spoke quite highly of the great relationship that he has with the Turkish president. We know that the president might be heading off to the Middle East very soon. Is he planning to meet with the Turkish president?
Data law. I like how you said that. Do you think Trump said arrest this man? No, he doesn't care. Trump didn't arrest him. The authorities did. Trump was the one who instructed all of the authorities and gave them the power to go in and arrest these individuals based on certain characteristics like tattoos. Okay? They're not showing their due process rights. There are numerous individuals, for example, that went on that flight over there to El Salvador, and the judge said turn around, and they didn't turn it around. Why? Because they're not doing due process rights. I'm going to continue this place. I got to be right back.
Either here in the White House or in Turkey? Any plans?
I don't have any details about the president's overseas trip other than to say he was surely going to Saudi Arabia. There could be more countries as part of that trip. We're working on the details, and as I've said repeatedly, we will provide the details of that trip as soon as possible.
A trip to Turkey, or like his invitation to the Turkish president, is under consideration.
I'm not going to comment on the details of the trip, but once they're confirmed, I will certainly let you all know. Yes, Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. I'd like to ask you about presidential health and also about tariffs. On presidential health, are there plans for the president's physician to come here and take our questions? And also, President Trump repeatedly makes remarks about the former president's health. Is he considering using his executive powers to bring any greater transparency there?
As I have said, the president is undergoing his long-scheduled physical. It's a yearly physical that every president receives, and we will provide an update on that by the president's physician as soon as we possibly can.
And about the former president and transparency regarding his health?
Well, I can tell you there was certainly a lack of transparency from the former president, from the entire former administration, and frankly, a lot of people in this room when it came to the health and the competence of the former president of the United States, Joe Biden. There was one of the greatest cover-ups and frankly political scandals this nation has ever seen. It's been unraveled in some recent books that are being written by journalists who engaged in that cover-up and scandal, which is quite ironic. But this president is clearly committed to transparency. You in this room see him and hear from him on a daily basis. You in this room know from covering him, it's hard to keep up with him. He is a machine working around the clock every single day. And the physician, after today's physical, will provide an update on the report in the effort of transparency.
If I could ask about tariffs, there have been big swings this week in the Treasury bond yields. There's a theory that it might be because of China dumping these as leverage, driving up costs for U.S. loans like mortgages. Does the White House have evidence that this is in fact a result of Chinese dumping? And if so, is there a message on that?
Not to my knowledge, but I would check in with the Treasury Department on that. I can tell you I know our Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, is keeping a very close eye on the bond market. He spoke about it at the White House this week, and I know he's keeping his eyes on it day to day. Ed.
Thanks. Thank you, Carolyn. So the administration, I have an administration source who's telling me that we're weeks away from the first deal with the country over tariffs. Where is the administration? How soon can we see that? And what country is that? First one.
I won't reveal or get ahead of our trade team as these negotiations are obviously ongoing, but I can tell you very good progress has been made. Jameson Greer was on television this morning, and I spoke to him, and he confirmed that more than 15 offers are already on the table, which is remarkable in just a mere matter of days. And as I said earlier, we've heard from more than 75 countries around the world. This is a team.
75 countries that they yet to have released any of them, by the way. We did stand up to China when they were enslaving the Muslim population in their country, but you just going to ignore that too. Right, exactly. I mean, she's kind of not wrong about Biden. I had to look at that. Congrats, Mr. President, for winning a golf tournament this weekend. Yeah, 2 tests. That's kind of funny too, right? Like he continues to win all these golf tournaments at his resorts. Kind of sus, right?
Effort. The president has a team of great, brilliant advisors who have been with him every step of.
Master Liberty, you can say whatever you want. The fact is they should be able to bring them back to the United States, and they are refusing to do so. Thus, they are trying to defy the Supreme Court's rulings. You can try to sugarcoat it however you would like, but the fact is that they are completely disregarding that.
The way, and all of them will be divvying up the workload. And I just want to give the president and his trade team credit for taking this on. This is a massive undertaking. There's no doubt about it. We take it very seriously. The president is determined to renegotiate global trade on behalf of American workers. And again, you've seen people on both sides of the aisles calling for this for years, but I think no other president lacked the courage or maybe the work ethic or the stamina to take on such a task. And I know there were some questions about the president's delayed departure earlier to Walter Reed. I'd like to address it was because he's working on this very issue, so he was running a bit behind this morning.
My man was sleeping. Yo, Donald Trump was sitting up there going, yo, y'all aren't going to interrupt my nap. That's why he was delayed. My butt. He's sitting there working. Okay. You know, all the jokes that MAGA made about Joe Biden can absolutely be made for this administration, but they don't want to do that. It's hysterical. Did you study business? I did actually, Jared. Thank you for asking.
On the 90-day pause, is what would the president need to see in order to extend that 90-day pause for countries on tariffs?
Well, I think the president addressed this yesterday when he said he's hoping that there will be good deals made before the 90 days.
What do you think Joe did, Data? I think Joe did some, substantial infrastructure planning. I think that he was an elderly guy. I did not vote for Joe Biden. I actually voted for Donald Trump in 20, regretfully, but I voted for him in 20.
Is up, and we will cut those deals as soon as we possibly can, country by country, tailor-made deals for each and every country as they all propose unique challenges and unique assets to each country.
100% too, Tefs. MAGA had Biden derangement syndrome. Y'all have Trump delusion syndrome. We have Trump delusion syndrome. No, here's the funny thing about this is I think that MAGA right now absolutely is dealing with some derangement syndrome. They absolutely love Donald Trump. They're all in on the Kool-Aid, and there's nothing that can really pull them away from him.
Advantages, rather. And when that 90-day mark hits, the president will make that decision then.
One more, if I could, on a different subject. So,
how long would you prefer for us to get bullied by China in regards to trade? Well, first of all, I would say that the way that Donald Trump is going about it is probably completely reckless. It's just like sitting there. He's just going in like a bull in a china shop. China shop, see how I did that? Trying to wreck our economy when we still haven't really See, here's the problem: is he's putting the cart before the horse in a lot of different manners. So, for example, when it comes to deportations, he hasn't secured any kind of bill to fund the border. There's no border funding bill at all right now. To be clear, okay. They've sent the military down there, but the military can't do anything at the border. So he's starting to do deportations. But guess what? When you have not secured the border, right? Okay, what's going to happen? You're going to deport those people, and then they're just going to come right back through because you have no funding. You've put the cart before the horse. It's the same thing here. How about you make negotiations with the businesses? Say, hey, if I did this, can you do this? Can I do this? Work with your business partners. You don't go in and just say, hey, I'm imposing because I feel like it today a 50% tariff on China just to get back at them. And then demand that China calls you. You do it meticulously with a scalpel. You don't go in with a sledgehammer and start just busting up the China shop. Why do you leftists hate America? I think the passion, Brobastic, comes from the fact that the left loves America. They love every single person in this country. Unlike the right. The right does not love every single person in this country. They only love people in this country that look like them, sound like them, and think like them. You're the reason we won. No, MAGA, you're the reason why in the midterms we're going to sweep. You're the reason why in 2028 it's going to be incredibly difficult for you guys to make any meaningful impact.
A bird earlier attacked my colleague Peter Doocy during a live shot at
I'm
the
wondering
White
if
House.
that's why Peter is absent from the seat. Is he doing okay?
He's recovering.
Has anyone checked on him?
He's recovering. Is anyone...
This guy thinks with emotions. I have plenty of facts. Let me know what you want to talk about. The left loves democracy. We do love democracy. We love the fabric of our country, what was founded on. That's what we love.
Looking into that incident.
I could check it.
Stocks, I think you missed what I said. Okay, I said people that look like them, sound like them, talk like them, people that think like them. That's who they like. Now, you're going to sit there because I can't really verify anything you said. And if your wife doesn't, wonderful. Wonderful. I'm glad that you have partaken in DEI. Thank you.
With GSA to see if anybody here is looking into it. I also understand there was a mouse in the briefing room earlier today, so I'm hoping somebody checked in on that, as I'm hoping it doesn't run up here and distract me. That would be a good way for all of you to distract me, actually. Have a mouse come run up here. So I'll get an answer for you on that, out of respect for our good friend Peter. Jeff?
Why is American consumer confidence so low?
Look, I think there's a great optimism in this economy.
Why is consumer confidence so low? I think there's great optimism. I think. Okay, no, there's not.
Optimism for the American people. A lot of reason for people to feel optimistic.
This guy buys $20 hamburgers and then complains about the economy. I don't currently buy $20 hamburgers, but I'm sure soon enough we will be buying $20 hamburgers thanks to your guy, Donald Trump.
The president is, as I just said, trying to renegotiate the global trade agenda that has ripped off the American people for far too long. As he said, this is going to be a period of transition. He wants consumers to trust in him, and they should trust in him. Look at what he did in his first term. And I just want to reiterate all of the reasons to be confident since you asked, Jeff. For those watching at home, yesterday the CPI report, inflation declined massively.
Declined massively, but it's backlogged. So that CPI has not fully caught up. That's something that that AP article I read, by the way, talks about the fact. It says excluding volatile, and this is the funny thing, it says excluding volatile food and energy categories, core prices rose 2.8% compared with a year ago. Let me pull up the actual CPI data here. So one of the things, let me see if I can do this real quick. I don't want to get into all the nitty gritty of it. So the CPI, let's see what went up. So it looks like we had a 0.5 for food at home. So food prices have increased from February to March. What's the biggest winner? It looks like energy decreased 2%. Or decreased. It was going down in December. So December 2024 was 2.4, 1.1, 0.2, and now it's negative 2.4, which is deflationary at that point. What else do we have increases on? Looks like a decrease here. So it's still lagging a little bit from what it looks of it. There are, but it does say here the index for food increased 0.4% in March after rising 0.2% in February. The food at home index rose 0.5% over the month as 4 of the 6 major grocery store food group indexes increased. Driven primarily by a 5.9% increase in the index for eggs. The index for meats, poultry, and fish and eggs rose 1.3% in March. The beef index also increased over the month, rising 1.2%. The index for other food at home increased 0.5%, and the index for dairy and related products rose 1%. The non-alcoholic beverage index increased 0.6% over the month. So remember when MAGA said that they wanted to get remember when MAGA said that they voted for lower grocery prices? Here is proof right here in the pudding that grocery prices are increasing due to the Donald Trump administration. So when she talks about these prices decreasing, primarily has to do with energy. But again, this is due in part to Joe Biden's record high oil supplies.
Consumer prices are dropping for the first time in years. Energy prices are down. In fact, oil prices are down 20% since this president took office.
Yeah, Trumpers can't read graphs. They only cherry pick the little rises. Yeah, and they like to look at like the trend, and they don't read into those trends and why those trends exist.
Wholesale prices fell again.
Groceries about the same. Steve, you're categorically wrong. I'm literally looking at here where it just said that driven by the index for food increased 0.4%, but that was driven primarily by a 5.9% increase in the index for eggs. Meat, poultry, fish, and eggs rose 1.3% in March. The beef index also increased over the month, rising 1.2%. You're just categorically wrong, but that's okay.
There have been trillions of dollars in investments into this country. Every day, the president is signing executive orders to cut regulation, especially when it comes to Environmental Protection Agency, our energy industry. That's going to unleash the economic boom in this country that we saw in the president's first term. So trust in President Trump. He knows what he's doing. This is a proven economic formula.
What is he asking of Americans at this time? He talked about transition costs, transition problems. Is he asking something specific for Americans to do?
No, I think the president is asking for Americans trust in Trump, as I just said, trust in his economic agenda and formula. It's a proven formula that works. And by the way, clearly American people do in fact trust him because they did just overwhelmingly elect him to this office. Jennifer.
Is he going, I'm asking about the physical, is he undergoing any general anesthesia, and can you outline any of the other tests that he's doing today?
He is not. He is undergoing quite a few tests, imaging. Again, it's a it's a yearly physical, so there's quite a lot that goes into it to make sure the president is accomplishing all of his goals, and we will provide a readout of that as soon as we can.
And will you be committed to releasing all of the results, as many of the results as possible?
Of course, yes. The president's physician will do that. I spoke with him this morning.
Sure. Will you guys also consider releasing the president's fitness plan? He actually looks healthier than ever before, healthier than he did 8 years ago, and I'm sure everybody in this room could agree. Is he working out with Bobby Kennedy, and is he eating less McDonald's?
I can confirm the president is in very good shape, as you see, on a near daily basis.
He's in such a great shape that he ended up. Yeah. Okay. Where's the report? Prove it.
Here, and in that vein, thank God it's Friday. It's been a very long and busy week here at the White House. We will see you all.
And Donald Trump's going to be off to the golf course. Gotta love it, don't you? So I'm going to kind of chat with you guys for a bit, and this is where we're going to transition into TikTok debates. That's what we're going to be doing. If you want to talk, go for it, but say something meaningful. Exactly. Biden was in perfect health. I wouldn't say that Biden was in perfect health. This is the problem, is you MAGA love to sit there and think that we all love Joe Biden. This is just categorically incorrect. Not all of us loved Joe Biden. In fact, like I said, I voted for Donald Trump in 2020. I can't prove it to you guys, but I voted for Donald Trump in 2020. I voted for Kamala Harris, the first Democrat I have ever voted for this election. So, I like buzzwords. Okay, yeah, I'm sure MAGA loves those buzzwords. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to transition into doing our TikTok debates. So let me go ahead and try to get that pulled up right now. Let's go ahead and go live. So what you're going to see, guys, is I'm going to transition over to TikTok real quick and talk about it. So here we go. Let's go and do this. I'm going to go live right now, and you guys will see this. All right, let's try this out. What is going on, everybody? Welcome on to TikTok. This is your boy, The Vince Wilson Show. I am live right now on YouTube, but I'm also here. Please, as you're coming in here, hit that like button. Let's go, guys. As you come in here, do you agree or disagree that Trump is bad for average Americans? If you disagree, join. Please join the chat. MAGA, we want you to join. I want to see if you actually agree with me or disagree with me that Donald Trump is destroying our country. What's going on, Amanda? Welcome in. I haven't seen you in a minute. We are live right now on YouTube. We are live on Twitch and TikTok, Twitch as well. But welcome in, everybody. Hey, as you're coming in here, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're sharing the stream out to everybody that you know. We are right now trying to do our best to have some MAGA gum in here, and let's talk about it. Please make sure you hit that like button. What's going on our side? Hey, I'm seeing some people in here. Yo, we're having a little bit of a hybrid event going on right now. So everybody that's coming in here right now, just know I am live on YouTube as well. So we're going to kind of have like a MAGA debate, so to speak. So if you want to come in here and you want to chat, please jump in here. MAGA, if you disagree with this statement right here, hit that button, hit that like button as you come in here. So what's going on, guys? Thank you so much for those likes. I appreciate it, guys. There we go. Come on, keep on coming in here. Hit those like buttons. Let's go. We gotta get them up. Let's get them up. Yo, Ironside. Thank you for that, joining my team, guys. I wish I could show you my full screen. Let me see if I can do that for you guys real quick. Hold on one second. Let me do that. Oops. There we go. I think you guys can see this. There we go. So you guys can see on YouTube what it is I'm doing. It's a little delayed, so you just got to deal with it. Yo, everybody, hey, as you're coming in here, yo, hit that like button. Come on, we got 8 viewers in here. I know we got way more than that. Hit that like button, share the stream, please. And if you disagree with this statement here, join the chat. I want to debate you. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Hit the share button, hit the like button. Let's go. Hey, right now we're at 262 likes. I want to see that thing at 1,000 likes. Let's go, guys. All right, so I'm waiting for MAGA to come in here right now. Y'all can't see it. Y'all can only see my chest on YouTube. Yo, welcome in, guys. Yo, Ironside, thank you for that that gift badge. Yes, I see y'all hitting that like button. Let's go. Let's get to 1,000 likes. And if you disagree with the statement, MAGA, come on in here and join the guests. Trump golfing again? Yeah, I bet he's absolutely golfing again. Donald Trump loves to golf. Donald Trump has had a terrible week as well, by the way. We can look at the fact that the tariffs have been crazy, the fact that he's trying to defy the Supreme Court. Yo, well, we're almost over to 1,000 likes. Let's go. Hey, by the way, you on YouTube too. Y'all can participate in this too. If y'all are not, hitting that like, subscribe, notification bell, hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. Let's go. Trump. Why do you love Trump, Charlie? Lisa Morrow said Trump with the flags. Why do you love Trump, Lisa? Why do you love Trump? Y'all are in here. Y'all are saying y'all love Trump. Why do you love Trump? Trump should go gold more. He's better than Biden or Obama. I never understood how anyone could be in favor of the free markets and be in favor of tariffs. Either lower your costs for consumers or pound sand. How anyone could be in favor of the free markets, be in favor of tariffs. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too, right? They're all about the capitalism and everything until they, started imposing tariffs, it's funny. I got into an argument with somebody as well when they were talking about how, Donald Trump, or how they didn't like that Joe Biden rose prices. And I'm like, well, what do you think tariffs are going to do? They're like, oh, it's, companies are just going to basically eat it, right? They'll just lessen what they're getting and stuff like that. So what did he do wrong? What hurt us? Well, Donald Trump, he imposed numerous tariffs. We can look at that. We can look at the fact that he's already talking about wanting to take over Greenland, Canada, and now he's putting the military in place in Panama. We can talk about that as well. Tariffs good. Why are tariffs good, Gary? Terrified going to put companies out of business. Yeah, small businesses are already reeling. We're already seeing inflation for groceries, by the way. We just went over that because Caroline Levitt made the accusation that inflation is down, in which it is, but it's a lagging indicator in a lot of ways. But what we are seeing, though, is that prices are going up. All right, we got our first person. It's called Philpo. Let's bring Philpo in here. Oh, hold on. Let me try to adjust this 1 second, Philpo. Hold on 1 second. Let me adjust this. Hey, buddy, give me 1 quick second. I got to adjust how this is set up. There we go. Okay. Let me get you set up here. How are you doing on this beautiful Friday, Philpo?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing good. So, I'm assuming, what is your age, state, and who did you vote for?
My age, I'm 22 years old. I'm currently going to school here in South Carolina, or Georgetown Tech. I'm doing my nursing stuff, and I voted for Donald Trump. I cannot lie.
Okay. Why did you vote for Donald Trump? What do you love about Donald Trump and how he's doing so far?
I think one of the most important things for me, like most other people, was like seriously, like during that first Trump presidency, I'm not gonna lie, like things were looking pretty good and everything. But the only reason I feel like Trump is bad, I feel like for the average American.
Do you think these tariffs are going to be a good thing for the average American?
In the long run, yes, but I feel like there's a way you can, like, I don't know, because you have to realize, like, I don't think the stock market is a good way at kind of judging where the economy is at, because even under Joe Biden, like, the stock market was doing so good. And
yeah. And CPI was good too.
Yeah.
That's something I think you
lot of these.
You go ahead.
But this is the thing. A lot of these big corporations. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
A lot of these big corporations take advantage of the fact that they can build all these big factories and all this stuff in these other countries, and it kind of does, like, leave the average American, I feel like, I'm sorry, I'm not a political expert, but
You're good,
when
man.
when I think about this, I feel like it does leave the average American screwed out of a job because now, for example, CEO of Apple is going to take advantage of somebody in another country for cheap labor instead of
Did you
Americans.
say you voted for Trump?
I did.
It doesn't sound like you really voted for Trump. You're sitting there saying things that like you're not so sure about.
What do you mean?
Like you're saying that you can see where they're going to try to avoid paying taxes, or that the prices could go up because of these tariffs. You seem a little unsure
Yeah, they
about
are.
that.
They definitely are. I was just seeing now that some of the tariffs are going to be increasing the price of the iPhone for the what next. But that's the thing. I don't think these tariffs are like a long-term thing. It's just so they can work out a deal. Shit, I think they were talking about like trying to do like a 0-0, and I don't know. It just I think when you're taxing another country's goods way more, taxes really do screw out the average American. Like when you raise taxes, you got to think a business corporation, they don't care if you raise the taxes. They're just going to make the product more
Expensive?
That's why another reason.
I mean, look, man. Let me explain something. So the thing is that these tariffs right now are going to absolutely increase prices. Hey, by the way, guys, as you're coming in here, please hit that like button. Please hit that like and let's get some hearts. Look, we're at 1.7K hearts. Let's get us up to about let's say 3K hearts. Can we get to 3K? Come on, I know you guys can do that. I'm going to call you Phil for a minute. The thing about this is that look, it's interesting to me you voted for Donald Trump, but yet everything you're mentioning right now sounds like you would have been better off not voting for Trump. I'm not saying you had to vote for Kamala, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why you would have voted for Donald Trump, given what you're saying. So, like, yeah.
I don't know. I just think, especially, I think Trump is definitely a businessman. And I seriously, I know this sounds crazy, but I think Trump is literally sacrificing the people so he can get a better deal and a better, because think about it, nobody in China is driving American vehicles. Like, we are kind of very underused. We use China a lot in trade, and it's very empowering. And I was in the military, and I feel like what we're witnessing nowadays is it's like a global power shift, and China is really expanding around the globe. If you listen to what Xi Jinping is saying, he's literally saying that they're going to take over the globe. And this is the reason I feel like I voted for Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of Americans are pretty central, moderate. I do believe in abortion or whatever. But I feel like in the deeper aspect of things, I really do believe that Trump was the better option for America. And I believe in the long run. I think by this time next year, the stock market recovery is probably going to be one of the best they've ever seen. The power of the dollar is going to be back.
What makes you think it's going to be the best thing you've ever seen? What leads you to believe that? Like, all of the tariffs indicate that we're going to. We saw J.P. Morgan, for example, say that we're going to have a 60% recession.
These aren't permanent. These are not permanent tariffs.
What makes you believe these aren't permanent tariffs?
What makes you believe that they are?
What makes me believe they are is that Donald Trump ran on them, and the fact that every time he says that he's going to do a 90-day pause, he ends up implementing the tariffs right back again. And I'm not saying that as far as
this is another thing. This is another thing, though. In 1914, when federal taxes, because if you look at pictures of New York City in 1914, what you will see is when the government didn't even make federal income tax, they were still building a pretty impressive infrastructure. And back then, there was no federal income tax. You want to know how the government made the money? Tariffs.
Oh, tariffs. Yeah. So, first of all, do you know what happened in the 1920s after the war? What happened in the 1920s is that we became somewhat of an isolationist country. In pair with that, we also implemented the Smoot-Hawley Act, which then implemented record high tariffs. And what we're seeing right now is we saw the Great Depression happen after the 1930s. And so we're seeing the same thing play out right now in this country. We're seeing record high tariffs. We're seeing the stock market fluctuate and see, drops like we've never seen them before.
Yeah, but
and
this
people's
is the thing.
retirements being wiped out.
People in the stock market, people always complaining about the stock market and eat the rich. But 90% of the stock market is owned by the top 8%. So why are people, I don't get why
Well, okay,
people are
wait,
looking
because
at the
you
stock
do
market right now.
Yeah, you do understand that inflation affects the everyday American, because one thing that companies love to do is they love to protect.
Yes,
They
I
love
know
to
how
protect their profit. Right.
I know how inflation affects the average American. I actually
Okay,
was an
then.
American from 2020 to 2024 under
Okay.
one of the most craziest inflations we've ever had.
So you do understand that there is a difference, or that when you talk about the left, you find it funny that the left says eat the rich, and then that the left is, all of a sudden upset at the fact that the stock market is going down. It's because it affects every single American, even those that say eat the rich. It's the same people. And by the way, for everyone in chat, real quick, I just want to address this. Everyone in chat that's saying inflation is down. Inflation is down, correct. The CPI is down. But it's funny because none of you guys mentioned, and I've gotten to this argument before many times when people say CPI is, they'll kind of flip-flop on that. But a lot of the times when I talk to MAGA, they would say, inflation was high under Joe Biden. I would say, well, the inflation CPI numbers are down. They got up to 9%. He brought it down to 2%.
Well,
and they say, oh, well, it's cumulative.
One more thing. I don't want to think of you like, I don't want someone to look at me and be like, oh, MAGA, and I don't want to look at you like, oh, lefty. You know what I mean? That's not how I'm looking at people, by the way.
100%.
I think that's crazy.
Well, let me ask you this. I don't think you're. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think you're MAGA. I don't think you're MAGA. I think that you voted somebody that more than likely, and maybe I'm wrong in this, that I think you voted based upon your upbringing, what you believed to be, that your friends, your families, things like that. Somewhere, that's just kind of how you've always voted, and you've kind of always been left to kind of defend those positions. I don't necessarily ascribe you to MAGA. I have encountered MAGA. They are very easy to spot. I don't think that you are MAGA. Do I think that you are MAGA light? It's possible. I just think that you're maybe a little lost in the sauce. You know what I mean? And I just don't think that you're quite to MAGA yet. So and I'm glad that you wouldn't describe me being a leftist. I was once a person who voted for Donald Trump. I voted for Donald Trump in 17 and in 20. I voted for Mitt Romney in 14. This election was the first time ever that I voted for Kamala Harris.
We kind of got the same deal, kind of like on the opposite side thing, because like we were definitely like, I remember my mom growing up was like definitely into Obama. She was like hella supportive. I couldn't vote during that time. Trump's first thing, I couldn't vote for. So it was a really unique, like, I don't know. I think that is kind of, I'm glad we ended on this, but I do got to go.
I got you, bud. I appreciate you coming in here, Phil, and we can talk again some other time. All right, buddy?
Yeah, have a good one. God bless you.
All right, you too. All right, let's bring in the next guest here, Christopher. Let's see if Christopher will jump in. They haven't even felt the impacts of the tariffs yet? Oh, we were absolutely going to feel that. Christopher, what's going on? What's your age, state, and who did you vote for?
41. North Carolina, Trump.
Trump. All righty. Why did you vote for Donald Trump?
That's the same thing. Like for everything he did. So, can I ask you a question now?
Of course. Go ahead. What you got?
How has Trump affected your personal life in the past 3 months?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, egg prices. That's a number one.
Your personal life.
My personal life. Egg prices have gone up. So my grocery bill has gone up pretty significantly. So
you're gonna lie and just say that the egg prices haven't gone down?
I can pull CPI data from. Let's pull it up. So the CPI
59%.
Yeah, no, I can talk about right here. So the CPI numbers that people have been referring to, saying that inflation is going down, which is true to some degree. The CPI numbers.
I'm talking about egg prices. You said egg prices. I'm talking about inflation.
Egg prices. We're getting to that. So we can look at this. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This was just announced literally yesterday. I'm getting there, buddy. So it says here, driven primarily by a 5.9% increase in the index for eggs. The index for meats and poultry, fish, and eggs rose 1.3% in March. The beef index also increased over the month, rising 1.2%, and the index for other food at home increased 0.5%. The prices that you believe are going down are actually due in part to the wholesale egg prices. It has nothing to do with actual retail prices. Why? Because retailers want to keep their prices high, and you can look up any kind of article, business article, it makes a whole lot of sense. Because of all the losses that they had incurred, they are trying to make up for those lost profits.
Okay, so you can talk about all that you want, but like, do you agree that the new president inherits the old president's stuff before he changes it?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because Donald Trump inherited a wonderful economy from Joe Biden and then ended up ruining that momentum by implementing his terrible tariff policy. So yeah, I do believe it. And in fact, keep in mind, by the way, if we're going to use that,
like 2016 or 2020 or 2024.
2024. I said he inherited Joe Biden's economy.
Yeah, like the egg prices being high and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no. So egg prices were going up.
Yeah,
There
no,
was,
they were high. So yeah,
they were going.
what's
I'm
your
glad you
excuse?
mentioned. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned this. So do you think then that the inflation that happened under Joe Biden was in part due to some of Donald Trump's policies? Would you be willing
Not
to admit to that?
after, like apparently it took 4 years,
It
right?
took 4 years. What do you mean?
Well, Biden was in office for 4 years, and you could say
Right.
like every president inherits the other president's thing, but after a couple of years, they can either make it go up or go down. But Biden had 4 years, and apparently Trump inherited Biden's high egg prices and high gas prices.
You keep going back to that, but I asked you specifically, do you believe that some of that inflation that was incurred, it's a very simple question.
Yeah, but
That
like Biden had 4 years to make it go down, right?
he did, and he did.
And it didn't.
It did. You can
Why
actually
you
look
guys
at,
bitching about then? Why you guys bitching about eggs and gas prices?
well, because again, Donald Trump is imposing tariffs on everyday American goods.
No, that's new. That's new. He inherited high egg prices and gas prices. You guys
Wait.
complain.
So
Oh, he didn't do it on
gas
day
prices
one.
came down under Joe Biden. They were not back to pre C-19
But
levels.
when Trump became president,
Mhm.
all your little TikTok lives said, "Why are egg prices down?" He said he was going to do it on day one. He was going to do it on
Yeah,
day
he said he
one.
did. He did say that.
Okay, well, apparently egg prices were high, right?
Well, it depends on how you define high. Were they
No,
record high
no,
levels,
no.
or were they
If-
going
if-
up?
if-
What do you mean?
No, if you're complaining about egg prices being high and Donald Trump not stopping it on day one, that
Mm-hmm.
means it came from Biden, right?
Wait, so you're saying that Donald Trump not no
see,
no no no
look
no
at
no this
you.
is interesting how you're playing this because you're not mentioning how you're saying that Donald Trump made a promise to lower prices on day one.
On day one, and nobody
Okay.
believed that. Go ahead.
Nobody believed that. So, so nobody voted for Donald Trump because of the economy.
No. I mean, you Democrats and liberals believe that, but like
As
us,
so then like, the economy was not the number one issue for MAGA.
oh
Is that
no,
what you're telling me?
like us, we have common sense. We know that a person can't stop it on day one, but we also know that
Y'all
they
have common
can't go-
sense. Then tell me then. Are you going to agree with me that some of these tariffs will
But,
increase
like-
prices?
Okay, no. Are you going to sit there and say that you believe that a person can make egg prices drop on day one?
Do I believe that? Not inherently, but I'm not the one
Okay,
sitting
but
there
like,
making.
Why are you liberal, Democrat lives sitting there, let a past.
I
month
can't
ago
speak for
say,
everybody. I can only
"Why
speak to
are egg
myself.
prices
Work
down?
with me, not
Why
everybody
are
else.
egg prices down because
Yeah.
you're all just like, what the fuck?
Why are we saying that? Why do you think we're saying that, Chris?
Well, because they're already high from Biden.
No, the reason why we're saying that is because Donald Trump made a promise to his cult following.
Okay, but he made
Yeah.
a promise, and the promise was still kept.
The promise was kept. So egg prices came down. Retail egg prices came
they are.
down.
They
Retail
are
egg
down.
retail egg prices came down. No, they didn't.
Yes, they
Retail egg
did.
prices gone up. I just
They-
pulled up the CPI chart that proved
Dude,
you wrong.
I just been to the Walmart. They're already down $3.
Oh, so your anecdotal experience speaks for everybody else in the country?
Not my anecdotal experience, my actual experience. Like
No,
going to
it's
the
your
grocery store.
anecdotal experience. That's exactly what it is. Your self-experience, not the entire country. I can go by the CPI numbers, the same
Oh,
CPI
no,
numbers that
I've
MAGA
already-
went by.
I've already Googled it. Like the whole across the United States is down $5.
The entire country is down by $5. Do you have a source for that?
Yeah, I could look it up.
Yeah, you got to look. Okay, yeah. I mean, you can't point. Where'd you get that from?
No,
Did you get
I've already found it. Like the national egg prices.
national egg prices? That's the wholesale egg prices that are down by $5. That's what you're referring to, not the retail egg
The
prices. They're
national-
completely
like
different.
The United States national egg prices have been down
Yes.
59%.
Yes, that is
they have
referring
been
to
dropping.
wholesale
They
egg
have
prices.
been-
That is not referring to retail prices. They are completely different. Wholesale egg prices are what then are sold to grocers to then sell themselves. So the end product that you see is bought from wholesalers. And so why you might be wondering, well, why is it that wholesale prices are down and that retail prices have not gone down? Oh, that's right, because retailers are trying to price gouge. It sure could use a Kamala Harris price gouging law, huh? We could really use it right now, right?
Okay, no, go ahead. Is that Trump's fault?
Trump's fault for what?
Retailers price gouging?
You could say it's his fault in some degree.
No, it's not.
You can say it's his fault to some degree.
Don't lie.
What-
Just say it.
The fact that price or retailers. Wait, okay, hold on. Let me ask you this: do you think that let me ask you this: do you think that retailers are price gouging these eggs?
Well, apparently now, because you saying it.
Okay, so you would agree with me then that
So,
egg prices are staying high while wholesale egg
Trump's
prices are
fault?
going down.
Is that Trump's fault?
Do I think it's Trump's fault? It's his economy. He inherits it, right? That's it. He owns it. Isn't that the idea?
No. Trump made the price of eggs go down.
Where? We're going in circles here. We're going in circles.
You've already agreed with that.
Wholesale or retail?
You said wholesale.
Which one?
Yes.
Okay, so wholesale has gone down.
Wholesale's gone down because of Trump.
Can I ask you something? How do you think those prices went down? How do you think those prices went down? Okay, wait. No, this is interesting actually. So, do you attribute those wholesale egg prices going down due to Donald Trump?
Well, no, it's just because the culling of the chickens during the Biden administration, and then the new chickens growing up. It only takes about
You don't think that any of that has in part to do? Well, this is my life.
It takes about 3 to 4 months for new chickens to start laying, and then the new chickens start laying.
So when did these new chickens start laying?
Well, he culled the chickens in what?
Come on, man. Look, here's the thing about it right now.
No, come on, man. You know exactly what I'm talking about, but you just don't want to admit it.
No, because the thing is that Joe Biden did exactly what every other previous administration has ever done when it comes to these birds.
And he should.
Yeah. Okay. So again, you have yet to have explained to me how Donald Trump.
Why do liberals blame Trump for egg prices when?
Okay, you're missing the plot here. Let me explain.
If you had common sense, knowing that the chickens got cold.
Okay, you're missing why they're complaining about Trump. They're not complaining about Trump necessarily inherently bringing down egg prices, although that is certainly a valid argument. The reason they're complaining is because Donald Trump made a promise to his followers, his cult followers, on bringing down grocery prices on day one. And as I've pointed out numerous times, grocery prices have not come down. Wholesale prices are not the end product that you buy. That is not what you buy at the grocery store.
They are going down.
Wholesale prices are going down. Retail prices are not. What part do you not get to understand about that?
Retail prices are going down.
Where are they going down? Show me the retail prices, because I just read to you. Did I or did I not just read to you the CPI that just said?
Everything you want, but
I'm working off of facts, not feelings, my guy.
If anybody in here is listening to this crap, tell him at your own grocery store your prices are going down.
That is an anecdotal.
Because I don't want to hear what you say.
I know. I want to hear. I'm glad you say that. I want to go to the survey that I'm looking at right here that is explaining the fact that the egg prices went up.
No, if you're so sure of yourself, why don't you bring someone else up?
That sounds great, Chris. I appreciate you coming in here, buddy.
Yeah, thank
you. All right, let's bring in the next person. We got Coca-Cola Bear. By the way, guys, hey, make sure you hit that like button. Look, we're at 3.2 thousand likes. Please get that up to 4,000 likes. I know you guys can do it. There's 139 of you in here. By the way, guys, on my YouTube channel, welcome in, guys. I see a bunch of different people in here. What poll? Run it back. 70% of America voted MAGA fools. Welcome in, guys. Welcome in. All right. So Coca-Cola, who did you vote for? What is your age? And what's your state? There you go.
In 2016, I voted for Trump in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
In 2020, I voted for Trump in Illinois. And in 2024-ish, or November of last year, I guess, I voted for Trump in South Carolina, 32.
All right. So what led you to vote for Donald Trump? What was your number one issue?
Well, you take a left-leaning news source like CNN, right? And CNN put out an article that said in 2024, most Americans earning less than $200,000 were living paycheck to paycheck. There were more Americans in 2024 living paycheck to paycheck than in 2020, and they were making over $150,000 per household, my guy. So the economy was doing so great under Joe Biden. Then why were Americans struggling 4 years after he was elected?
So you said it was CNN, more Americans living paycheck to paycheck?
In 2024 than in 2020.
More families making over $150,000 are living paycheck to paycheck. October 27th of 2024.
Absolutely terrible. Your guy had 4 years to fix the economy. 4 years.
Yeah, and he did. He did a great job.
Our trust.
Yeah, he did a great job.
He betrayed us, and he stabbed us in the back. And the Democrats
he did a great job.
America.
No, he did a great job. He did a great job. He brought it out. How did he do a horrible job?
$150,000 a year, and you're living paycheck to paycheck in 2024. That is absolutely terrible. Terrible.
Let's see. Analyze. Authors and analysis find people who live paycheck to paycheck as those who dedicate more than 90% of household income to necessities, which include gasoline, food, utilities, internet, public transportation, childcare, and housing costs. across all income households that earn less than 30 or 50,000 a year saw the highest proportion, around 35%. Okay, so at less than 150,000, it looks like it's actually interesting because it says households that earn less than $50,000 a year saw the highest proportion, around 35% of people living paycheck to paycheck so far this year. The question I would then propose to you is, what was it prior to that, and what was it under Donald Trump? Oh, look at this one. Americans are paying about 20% more for everything nowadays compared to before the pandemic, which is true because inflation is compounding. And so I'm not denying that inflation went up under Joe Biden, but the reason as to why it went up is absolutely in part due to Donald Trump. However, the inflation rate came down from 9% down to 2.4% when Joe Biden left office. So the inflation rate cooled dramatically.
Guess what? When more people are living paycheck to paycheck, they don't have money to spend. So yeah, you're taking everyone's money by making them pay extraordinarily high prices at the grocery store, extraordinarily high prices at the gasoline, and credit cards were maxed out to levels no one has ever seen before in 2024.
Oh, wait, it says it in here. It says one reason the authors of the analysis offer in their report is that higher income households may have bought larger, more expensive homes and consequently have bigger mortgages. And often along with bigger homes come bigger insurance costs, property taxes, and utility bills. So in other words, what they were doing is called, what is it called? A creep? Wage creep or something. I remember there's some kind of word for it, where basically the more money you make, the more you spend on various goods to try to meet that income level, to meet with your friends and families and everything else. So essentially they had enough money to buy into a bigger mortgage. That sounds like a great economy. It just seems like they're terrible with personal finances.
Sounds like a terrible economy.
Sounds like a great economy.
You're blaming more Americans for living paycheck to paycheck under Joe Biden than any other president in the history of America.
Do you agree or disagree that Americans tend to more often than not be terrible with their personal finances? Do you agree or disagree?
We're a consumer-driven economy. I 100% agree. It's one of the reasons why these tariffs will work.
You think that these tariffs will work? Let's dive into that. Why do you think these tariffs will work?
They worked the first time.
They worked the first time. What was it the first time? What were those tariffs the first time?
Unbelievable economic growth.
Unbelievable economic growth. What were those tariffs? You haven't told me what these tariffs were. What were these specific tariffs?
Minority unemployment, the results of these tariffs, was at a record low under Donald Trump.
You are not explaining to me what these tariffs were. What were these tariffs?
They were tariffs directed specifically at China.
Oh, specifically at China. And what was it on in China?
Basically, it was a blanket tariff on China. But
it was not a blanket tariff, if I'm not mistaken. It was a specific tariff specifically to steel and aluminum. So the difference here, do you
have your obscure data points? Okay, so
I'm not working off obscure data points.
Trick questions. Just tell me the data that you're looking at instead of trying to ask trick questions.
Sure. Oh, it's not a trick question. It's to say that you are asking me, and you're telling me that Donald Trump's economy the first time around was so great, due in part to his tariffs, even though his tariffs then are dramatically different than they are now. You would have to
be different now.
They have to be different now. Okay, so then we would agree then that they are different, right?
Yes.
So then how can you sit there and say that the same tariffs that happened, or the tariffs that happened under his first administration that worked so well, are going to somehow work this one if they're different? How could you say that they're going to be the same? In fact, I would argue that actually goes against your argument, and it shows that, by the way, one of the big things that they found out about those tariffs on China was
not
because
arguing. First of all, we're having a discussion here.
Arguing, discussion, debate, whatever. This is a show that I like to do some kind of a debate on, whether you want to call it a discussion. I do like discussions as well. But here's the thing I want to say. When we talk about these tariffs now are blanket tariffs. They're not targeted tariffs. And one of the things that
Biden left every single one of those tariffs in place.
Yes, he did. No? You're right. He did leave some of the steel and aluminum tariffs.
So the tariffs that you're against, your president left in place because
wasn't my president. Right? I voted for Donald Trump in 20, and I voted for Kamala Harris in 24. So they wasn't my president. And I know I can't back that up, but I can tell you I voted for Romney in 14, Trump in 16, Trump in 2.
Tariffs the first time as they stayed in place, but now all of a sudden
because
you change your mind on tariffs.
This is a zero-sum game you're playing. This is
quote unquote.
Let's be very clear. Hold on.
Whatever show you. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's be very clear. You are playing a zero-sum game right now. You are saying
that's
that
what you're doing, my guy.
No, hold on. My guy. No, hold on. What I am saying here is that I'm not against tariffs. I think tariffs absolutely have their place in some manner or another. This is one of the reasons why I think Joe Biden kept those in place, because what he was trying to do was trying to bring steel and aluminum back to the United States as well, right? But the problem that's happening now is that Donald Trump is imposing blanket tariffs up to 10% on places that don't even have a population. We talked, was it the McDonald Islands or whatever it was? So the fact that
tax the penguins.
What? He's trying to tax the penguins?
He has to put a tariff on the penguins. And the reason why, my friend, it's very simple. Look, China was building warehouses in other countries. They were exporting to those warehouses, getting around the tariffs, and then they would send those goods here.
So first of all, a lot of people try to get around these tariffs. They try to export it to another country that doesn't have or has a lower tariff. This was one of the reasons why, by the way, that the tariffs on China actually were not as impactful, because there was alternatives. The problem is that we're facing now is that we're having blanket tariffs on 150 different countries, up to 10%, and in China's case, up to 140% tariffs. A lot of goods, by the way, like our kids, Christmas gifts. By the way, if you want to get your kids Christmas gifts, you might want to get them now. Hey, real quick, I want to take a quick commercial break. Guys, listen, if you can please, we're up to 7,000 likes. Can we get up to 10,000 likes? Please make sure you hit that likes button and share this stream. Guys, for my YouTube watchers right now, welcome in. I see you guys in chat. I'm just trying to engage with this debate with Coca-Cola right now, but welcome everybody that's coming in. My YouTube watchers, please hit that like, subscribe, notification bell, so that way we can get pushed out to more people as well, and these debates can get sent out there. All right, back to the regular schedule programming. So
if the tariffs were not impactful, like you just said, why were they left in place?
Why were the tariffs left in place? I didn't know. So wait, hold on. I understand that those tariffs were
very
not
impactful.
No, hold on.
Great for our economy.
No, hold on.
Just admit it, man.
Hold on. So one of the reasons why that the prices didn't. As to whether or not it actually led to increased productivity, I would need to look more into that. I don't believe it.
We're one of the most productive countries in the entire world.
No, hold on. So the problem, though, that I'm arguing from is more so on the fact that there was a not as high of a rise in prices at that time, due in part to alternatives. That's more of where I'm arguing from, is that the prices that increased were less dramatic because of the fact that they were targeted. All right, I'm more concerned about
energy down right now.
How much is energy down right now? It's down pretty good, I think, according to the CPI numbers. But again, the one problem is that CPI is
almost 10%, which would offset any tariffs, because anything you buy from another country comes on a truck, does it not? So when you
truck or a boat or whatever,
when you crush the price of energy, inflation's going to fall dramatically. It's going to be great for the consumer. These tariffs that we have in place now, 10%, energy falls 15%, that would be absolutely phenomenal and fantastic for the economy.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the, I'm trying to pull up the EIA real quick. Would you agree with me then that under Joe Biden, we saw record high levels of oil production?
Because of the policies put in place by his predecessor, 100% agree. But he did.
So the
oil production in many areas across millions of acres of land.
I'm curious, because this is something that I see time and time again, is that MAGA loves to attribute any kind of positive that Joe Biden might have had
Just
to
like you.
What are you talking about? Can I
say you're against tariffs? Your boy Biden leaves them in place.
No.
Then
I
you admit
didn't
that
say I was
they're
against
impactful.
tariffs. I didn't say I was against tariffs. If you listen to what I said, I was specifically against how Donald Trump, in and of himself, is actually imposing these tariffs. That is the problem that I have an issue with. That is the issue I have, because he's implementing a blanket tariff on every single country. And then on top of it, they are now imposing tariffs right back onto us. Which then what that does is it causes companies to essentially freeze up their operations. We see investments like, for example, Microsoft leaving the United States. They had 3 data centers they were going to open up in Ohio, and they ended up leaving. So that is the problem I have. I don't have a problem against targeted tariffs. Targeted tariffs can work. However, the issue is that the way that Donald Trump is going about it is going to leave a stain on tariffs. And it's going to take years to try to renegotiate with some of our former allies. I say former.
Years. It's going to take days.
It's going to take days? So why are you saying it's going to take days?
We already have offers from multiple other countries, because we don't support free trade anymore. We need fair trade. We need to stop getting ripped off. China has ripped us off for over 30 years. Yes or no? Yes or no?
China has ripped us off for 30 years? What do you mean by that?
For over 30 years.
What do you mean by that?
They've...
You there, Coco?
I'm just astounded.
You're just
that you won't
astounded.
say
I'm asking
yes
you
or
what
no
do
to
you
that.
I'm asking what do you mean by getting ripped off?
Currency
I need to understand what you
manipulation
mean.
to start with. Currency manipulation to start with.
Uh-huh. Okay, I would agree with that. It looks like I believe they're performing in some currency manipulation right now. Sure.
But as an American, you won't simply admit that China, a dictatorship, has ripped us off for over 30 years, and we shouldn't support.
I'm asking you, what do you mean by ripped off? How are they ripping us off?
When you manipulate your currency to be so low so that you can export, and you steal a tremendous amount of IP from American companies, and you rip off basically every American corporation and every American consumer, it's quite terrible, my guy.
Yeah, so I would agree with you on the IP front. I believe they have. My foreign relations knowledge is a little on the weaker side. I'll admit to that. But the thing about it is that I would agree with you. I would agree with you that they have ripped us off in some manner or another like that. The issue I have with this, though, is that there has to be a way we have to approach this in a manner that is not like this. Because the problem that we're going to face is record high inflation. So you have to navigate this with a scalpel and not a sledgehammer. And the way that Donald Trump is approaching it, for example, we talked about the steel and aluminum tariffs. If that was all that Donald Trump was doing, I'd probably be fine with that. I'd probably be fine with that. But the problem is that he keeps racking up that price. And the president, Xi Jinping or whatever. Do what?
It's a tactic to get other parties to the table so we can make better deals and get fair trade.
It's always a negotiation with Donald Trump, isn't it? It's always a negotiation. It's the art of the deal, right?
NAFTA got 1,000 times better.
What about the USMCA? What about the USMCA that he put in place?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. NAFTA was replaced by that, and it's a much better deal for Americans, is it not? Yes or no?
So wait, the USMCA was did you say USMCA was the one that replaced NAFTA?
It's a better deal than NAFTA ever was.
It's a better deal than NAFTA. Even though Donald Trump himself has already said who put these deals in place, even though he was the one who put that USMCA in place, which, by the way, I think is hilarious because he's absolutely destroyed that USMCA is a pretty much null and void at this point. Because, again, the way that he's treated Canada and treated Mexico, Canada, I believe, has already said that they are removing numerous American products from their shelves.
You're scared of Canada.
I'm scared of Canada.
Oh, wow. Scared of the Maple Leafs, man.
Oh,
Look,
yeah. So would you agree we get a lot of our lumber from
80%
Canada?
of Canadian exports, 80% of Canadian exports come to the United States. 18% of our exports go to Canada. They have way more to lose than we do.
Oh, okay. So we don't get any lumber from Canada then? We don't get any products, we don't have any major.
Of course we do. Of course we do.
Oh, okay. So
they need us way more than we need them.
So we don't need them for the lumber?
Of course. You know, it would be great actually if the lumber came from the Southeast.
Came from the Southeast. You talking about just us, just destroying all the forests that we have already and just knocking it down and having American lumber. There's also a different kind of lumber. I believe it's a soft lumber that they're getting from up there.
If you look at sustainable forestry,
I have not looked at sustainable forestry, no. But
almost all of that's in the Southeast. So we could be.
You think so? We have soft lumber in the Southeast.
Friendly.
Let me see. I don't know if that's the case. I'll have to look at it.
More environmentally friendly. It would use our own lumber in a sustainable way. But instead, you would rather support China, who built over 100 coal power plants.
Okay, so it's not soft. It doesn't look like it's soft lumber in the Southeast, which is unique to northern. I believe soft lumber. Let me see. Used for softwood lumber is commonly used in construction for framing, roofing, and flooring. And soft lumber is one of the ones that we bring in most from Canada. So again, you said we could just go to the Southeast, but the problem is the lumber we get from the North. Exactly like Avalon just said in the chat, lumber from the North is much better for building homes.
We can get it from Montana. We can get it from Colorado, Washington State. There's alternatives.
So Montana's got soft lumber? Let me see.
And a 10% tariff isn't going to wreck our economy. In fact, if tariffs are 10% and energy's down 15%, that's a better deal for Americans. CPI is down. Inflation's down.
Oh, okay. So CPI is down. Would you agree then that Joe Biden brought the CPI down from 9% to 2.4%?
No, I would not agree.
You would not agree with that. That is just factually correct. He brought it down from 9%. You don't believe he brought the CPI down from 9% to 9 to 2.4? You don't believe that? I can pull it up.
Not believe that. I don't care. I don't care what you pull.
I'm working with facts. That's all I'm trying to work with.
What if the CPI was so much lower? If Americans were living so much better, then why did they overwhelmingly vote for Donald Trump? Why?
Because of Donald Trump's propaganda message. And the reality is that no, hold on. I can explain.
Brainwashed.
I can
right?
no, hold on.
There are more Americans
Hold
living
on.
paycheck to paycheck in 2024 than
I can
2020.
explain this if you just let me speak
Because
for
it's
just
their fault.
Okay.
Right.
First of all, let me explain this very easily. Inflation is compounding. I'm not denying that there wasn't inflation. CPI measures year over year inflation. What that means, and it's compounding. So CPI is basically saying from year over year, this is how much it has increased. Inflation increases. The whole reason why in 1999 our gas prices were like 25 cents or whatever it was, okay, per gallon, or it might have been $1. But
Gas prices are going way down right now.
Either way, what I'm trying to get on is that price was going up. People were feeling the pinch at the store, but understand what they weren't seeing is the bigger picture. And what I mean by that is that Donald Trump was able to capitalize on those rising grocery prices. He was also able to capture in some of the youth vote, which is one of the reasons why he was able to get in TikTok and things like that. There's a whole bunch of other layers there, but the economy was the number one reason for voters. Whether it was true or not, Donald Trump capitalized on that. And I will admit, Kamala Harris was a little bit on the weaker side of that because she was stuck in a predicament where she could either say that, hey, Joe Biden, that the economy, I understand you're feeling a pinch, but it's getting better. If she were to say it's getting better and people are saying, hey, my pocket's hurting, guess what? She's going to look like a liar, right? And the reality is the economy was getting better by all metrics. The stock market was hitting record highs. CPI was going down. Job claims were going down. We saw better economy. We saw chips manufacturers coming back to the United States through the CHIPS Act. There was numerous metrics that showed the economy was doing fabulous, but it takes a little bit to see that going. This whole reason, like you just said prior, that it takes time for the next administration to kind of get going because they're still inheriting.
Second year, the market was down, 20%, 22%, and bonds were also down double digits.
In his second year?
That was the first time that had happened since like 1933.
You're talking about the second. You're talking about his second year in office.
Yeah, second year in office.
Okay, I'm going to make sure we're clear here. We're on the same page. You agree that each president inherits some of their previous predecessors.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So
am I wrong in that?
So you're blaming Trump for the first 3 months. Am I wrong
for
in that?
right now? Yes. I can explain why. You want me to explain why?
Okay.
You want to explain why? I know it's hard for you to believe.
Not responsible for the first 3 months, but
no, there is some. No. Let me explain. I can explain. No, stop. All right, let's dissect this.
Stop. And Joe Biden passed.
Don't tell me to stop. This is my stream. Don't tell me to stop.
What was the IRA?
What was the IRA? The Inflation Reduction Act.
And how much money did that?
Let me go to committee for.
Yeah,
I can go to committee for a fiscal.
Biggest spending bill in American history.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about spending. We can talk about spending. Yeah, I can talk about spending. We can go look at how much Donald Trump versus Joe Biden spent. Do you want to do that? Do you know how much that was?
COVID-19.
Okay, we could. Well, make sure we're saying C-19 just because of TikTok. So if you look at the committee,
I know you love the Chinese and bootlicking.
Hey, stop. Okay, look, I'm not making the rules. TikTok does. So the net 10-year debt approved under Donald Trump, that's non-2020. Was 4.8 trillion. To Joe Biden, it was 2.2 trillion. He spent less than Donald Trump, and even if you were to include his little stimulus package, it was 2.1 trillion. Donald Trump's two stimulus packages, which again a lot of people forget about, was 3.6 trillion. So in total, Donald Trump spent. Yeah.
I got a really good question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
How much is a life worth?
How much is a life worth?
Yes. If you had to put a dollar amount on a life,
it's probably it's probably invaluable. I mean, there's probably some people. This is a moral question, right? I mean, we could look at like this. I'm gonna be very careful because I'm not sure where you're going with this, so I just want to be very careful.
Donald Trump unleashed Operation Warp Speed, where we got 3 vaccines.
Okay, hold on, stop. I trust me. I would love to talk about this. We'd have to talk about this off of TikTok, respectfully. Like I cannot. I do not want to talk about this topic at all. Only because I've seen what happens to lives on here talks about this. Okay. That's the only reason why. And when you talk about
and you ask why spending was so high, it needed to be high to save lives.
The spending not related to that event was
no, that was 100% related to that event. Are you kidding me?
It literally breaks it down on the Committee for a Responsible Fiscal Budget. It literally says $4.8 trillion.
And who's in charge of drafting the budget? Congress. And was Congress not?
Who signs off on the budget? Who signs off on all this? Who signs a bill?
The president.
The president. So the president signs off on this, and he's saying, I agree to this then, right? If he didn't agree to it, he wouldn't have signed it, right?
Well, if he didn't agree to it, America would have gone bankrupt. we would have shut down, right?
Okay.
So it's either agree to it or shut down.
So wait,
And we kept
okay.
the country open, and we got vaccines out like faster than ever before.
So here's the
We
problem.
saved lives.
Here's the problem I'm having right now is that you're referring to 2020, and what I'm saying is regardless of 2020, okay, ignoring that, Donald Trump prior to that event spent $4.8 trillion. It's according to the Committee for a Responsible Fiscal Budget.
Keep looking at your numbers.
I'm looking. Okay, here I'll give you the exact. Let's break it down. Let's break it down. I'll break it down.
Google, and you need your little numbers.
I'm working off of facts. Wasn't it MAGA that said facts don't care about your feelings? So here's the thing.
Yeah, it was MAGA that said that, and guess
Okay,
what?
that's great.
More Americans were living paycheck to paycheck in 2024 than ever.
Why were they living Why were people with $150,000 a year living paycheck to paycheck? Why was that? Why was
Joe
that?
Biden's policies.
That was because they were spending more money to buy bigger homes, almost like they had more money in their pocket. So it's called lifestyle creep. That's what the word I was looking for. By the way, so if you look at this exact 10-year debt impact from 2017 to 2021 under Donald Trump, there was a few different policies that increased the deficit quite a bit. One of which was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which increased the debt by $1.9 trillion. There was only one that actually saw, which is again why I say that tariffs were not terrible, is the new and increased tariffs under his first administration actually did decrease the deficit by about $443 billion. So that's a good thing in the way that it was done the first time. This time is not the way that it should be done.
We don't know that yet. That is out. Jury's out.
Jury's out about what?
The tariffs. Jury's out. If energy goes down 15% and there's a 10% tariffs, that's 5% room for the consumer. Everything runs on a truck.
Okay, this is hilarious to me.
Energy prices under Joe Biden were skyrocketing and out of control.
Energy prices were going down, and there was record oil production. There was record oil production. You agree with me on that?
Trump's policies.
Because of Trump's policies.
And then
Okay.
Biden turned around and he blocked access to federal lands for drilling. So
Yeah. So hey, Coca-Cola, look, we've had a great conversation. I want to try to cycle more people. I promise you can come back in here Monday. I'm gonna be doing call-ins on Monday as well. I would love to have you in here, but I want to try to cycle through some guests as well. Okay. But
thanks for your time. And,
absolutely, buddy.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
All right. So, real quick, guys, I want to acknowledge some of my people here over on YouTube as well as TikTok. First of all, TikTok, guys, hit that like button. We're almost at 10K likes. Hit that like button. The more that you like it, the more that you share the stream out, the more that people are going to see this stream. I would love to have these debates. I appreciate actually having that conversation with Coca-Cola. To my YouTube friends, please make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. Let's get this push out to more people. Right now, there's 110 of you guys watching. Let's get some more likes in here, please. All right. All right, guys. So let me go ahead and give me 1 second here. 1 second. Hold on. All right. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. Oops. All right. Let me go over here. Okay. So make sure you hit that like button. Let's get to the next guest. I think we had a few guests. Troy is ready to go up here. Let's bring Troy in. Hey, Troy, what's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Hey, doing good. How about yourself?
Doing good. What's your age, state, and who did you vote for?
I am 32, state of Florida, and Donald J. Trump.
All righty. So we got a Trumper in here. Why did you vote for Donald Trump?
Well, I voted for Donald Trump because I thought he did a great job his first time, and I thought he'd do great again the second time, and so far I'm pretty happy.
All righty. All right. So you think he did good in his first time? What do you agree that this time around is a little bit different than the first time?
Yeah, I agree it's a little bit different, but still, I more or less I think we're on a better track than we were the previous 4 years.
Oh, than the previous 4 years. You think we're on a better track? What gives you that indication?
Well, first of all, definitely him tackling the trade. I think the tariffs are great. I grew up in Michigan. I watched my entire hometown be hollowed out by these free trade agreements. So I'm glad that president's finally standing up to this crap.
Okay, so you think that these tariffs are going to help the economy in your local community? I think that's commendable, first and foremost. But I think the issue, though, we have with this is that you would have to acknowledge that these tariffs are going to lead to new inflation, right? Like, you would agree with that, right?
I mean, so I got a question for you. Do you think that we should increase corporate taxes or lower corporate taxes?
I think it's a balancing act, because I understand that the increased expenses do tend to get passed down to the consumer. So I do think we should probably increase them quite a little bit. I don't know to what degree I would say so. That's why I put myself in more of the liberal stance, because it's kind of one of those things that are more borderline. I still believe that companies ought to operate how they ought to operate within the confines of the law. I do believe that some companies will take advantage of some consumers or certain crises. For example, we saw this with egg prices and things like that, right? Where retailers, for example, are keeping prices elevated. If you want to say they're down in some areas, fine, but they're still elevated and compared to the wholesale prices. So I do think that they need to have some kind of an increase in their tax rate. Do I think it should be outlandish, like 50% to 100%? No. I think it should be increased to just a little bit. You do something like 50% to 100%, just like we're seeing with tariffs, you're going to see a dramatic increase in prices.
Okay, so yeah, so as you're saying, but if you increase corporate taxes, they're going to raise the prices anyway. So I think that it's smarter to tax the companies that are shipping our jobs overseas instead of taxing the companies keeping work here.
When you're saying tax the companies, you do realize that these tariffs are going to be a tax on everyday consumers, right?
Yes, just like a corporate tax is also passed down to everyday consumer.
Would you agree if, like, I don't know what the corporate tax rate right now currently is. I believe it's at 21%.
21, 23, 21, something like that. Yeah.
So if it were to increase, let's say 21 to 23%, okay. First of all, that's going to be for, I believe, any company that's operating within the United States. So if there's a company that has a home base outside of the United States, I believe it changes a little bit. I'd have to look at it again. But the issue with that is that even then, this is not going to be as big or broad. You would have to agree with me that an increase for a corporate tax rate from, say, 21 to 25% is much different than having a broad tariff on 150 countries at a 10% tariff rate. You would have to agree with me that those increases are going to be dramatically more high than it would be with just the corporate tax rate. You would agree with me on that, right? Like, I would agree with you they increase prices, but the degree to which they increase prices would be much different, right?
Now, like I said, if you want to avoid those tariffs and those costs, you can build your companies here. We can lower corporate rate and offset it by tariffing companies that want to offshore, like Nike.
So, well, I'm glad you mentioned that. So if they were to come back here to the United States, but they still have to get their raw materials from other countries, and those other countries are being tariffed, you would still agree that they are incurring a tariff. I mean, a virtual tariff. They're going to be getting tariffed on the raw materials that are coming out from these other countries.
You know, I really don't agree with that argument, because we used to be able to do it here all the time, all the way up until the 90s. And then magically we all of a sudden can't produce here anymore.
Well, I'm not saying that we can't produce here. Notice what I just said. If we want companies to come here, sure. But the problem is that, well, one, some of these are low quality jobs. Manufacturing is great. Don't get me wrong. But I'd prefer us to not go back to the sweatshops era of the 1900s. But aside from that,
so it's okay for people in the third world, global south.
I don't agree with that either. I don't agree with that either.
So then why are you defending companies that do that?
Yeah, I'm not. Well, first of all, I'm not defending companies that do that.
You are, if you're saying no tariffs.
Because I don't want them to do that either. But we're kind of in a predicament right now where what I'm saying is I don't mind companies coming here to the United States. But the problem is that you still have to source raw materials from other countries. You can't get around that. There are some countries that, remember that rare earth minerals, right, that they talk about all the time that are only in certain countries, whether it be for electric vehicles or auto manufacturing or whatever it may be. There are still raw materials that have to be sourced from other countries. And those other countries will be facing tariffs. From all intents and purposes, we're looking at about 150 countries so far that Donald Trump has listed having tariffs with a baseline of 10%. And then China has 144%, I think, right now, or 145 or whatever. And so that's what I'm trying to say is that you can bring it back to the United States, but you also have to acknowledge it takes time to bring it back to the United States. And we've already seen, going back to your earlier comment about, you're seeing some of the progress. Well, I can point to, for example, where Microsoft has pulled their 3 data centers from Ohio. And some of the progress we're seeing about chips manufacturers that are coming here are really due in part to Joe Biden's CHIPS Act. And Donald Trump somewhat admits to that. It's a little buried in some of his executive orders, but it's there in the executive order. I looked at it. They're using the CHIPS framework, but they're trying to make it more efficient.
Okay, but the guy from the company, the chips company in Taiwan, building in Arizona, that had nothing to do with the
Yes, it did.
CHIPS Act.
Yes, it did. So if you look at it, I believe they had announced that, I believe it was in November or October. I think it's TSMC, I think is the name of that chips manufacturer. Let me see, chips manufacturer Biden. Because there was one I saw with that. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yes. So here we go. This was November 15th. So this was like just shy after the election. The Biden administration provided TSMC, a major semiconductor manufacturer, with $6.6 billion in funding and up to $5 billion in loans under the CHIPS and Science Act. This funding is earmarked for TSMC to build 3 cutting-edge chip fabrication plants in Phoenix, Arizona. So again, the TSMC, and to understand what's going on with these chips manufacturers, is that there has already been, through the Biden administration, companies that have come here and built these chips that are mainly used in AI. And so what's happening is now that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have successfully brought some of these chips manufacturers here to the United States, those companies that use these AI chips are now following them because they want to be closer to where they're making these chips. This is what we saw with, like, say, Apple, because Apple is using these AI chips. So you have to understand that when Apple comes in here, that's because of the TSMC being here in the United States. That's because of Joe Biden. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I think the guy did increase investments when Trump got in, and knowing probably new tariffs were coming, so he's invested more here.
Well, no. So Microsoft pulled out. Microsoft pulled 3 data centers out of Ohio. This was announced, I think, this past week.
Okay, and for every H-1B visa-filled Microsoft data center that gets pulled, another factory gets opened up.
Sure. I wouldn't disagree with that, I guess, but I don't know if I would say every single one. I don't know if it's to that necessarily a ratio, unless you got something that I don't have.
Got Honda opening up a plant from Mexico, actually opening in Indiana now because of the tariffs.
I would caution on saying that. And the only reason I say that is because the auto manufacturers really rely on crossing borders. So when we talk about bringing manufacturing here to the United States, Honda may make some part or some piece of the vehicle here, but it goes up and down. Like sometimes it'll go to Canada, then it'll go to Mexico, and then it'll finish it over here maybe in America or the United States. And so when I say, you're still going to be, if Trump doesn't resolve any kind of, tariff on Canada, car manufacturers are not going to be able to take it to their shop up north. We saw this.
Well, maybe they should quit doing that. They could build it in Michigan. Why are they going to Canada? Why are we wasting all that extra fuel to send stuff across countries over and over and over again? Build it here. It's being sold here. It can be built here. I
mean, I would have to look at the auto manufacturers as to why specifically they're building it up in Canada. I get what you're saying is why not bring them down here back to the United States? The problem is that, again, you're talking about continual capital investments. You have a hostile market right now here in the United States just because of how they're treating. Now, granted, the Trump administration, if I were to give any kind of credit to the Trump administration, they seem to know that they don't want to put any tax on auto manufacturers because that's like the one thing that's the rallying cry for, I guess you could say, blue collar America, right? Is he understands that, and that's why he's trying to carve out certain exemptions for auto manufacturers.
Well, aren't a lot of that stuff under the USMCA, which I believe is not being affected by these tariffs?
So I believe you are correct to a certain degree, but the problem is that Donald Trump has already kind of gone against that, right, by imposing and going after Canada and Mexico. It's one of those things where the USMCA is in existence, but it's also at the same time kind of not, right? I think it was Canada. No. So what it was Trump pretty much, I believe, has violated the USMCA, but Canada said we are still going to try to do what we can to abide by the terms in the USMCA. So they imposed tariffs back on the United States within a certain framework that was designated within the USMCA, if my memory serves me right. So,
but like I said, I do believe these tariffs need to be put in place to even the playing field against these sweatshops, against the slave labor, against the child labor, the lack of environmental laws. I mean, why are we bringing in products that we would never ever allow to be built here by children and spewing factories?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I
And
talk
then
about.
they say, "Oh, that's free competition. It's fair trade." Like, what? Why is that being defended by the Democratic Party? I don't understand.
Well, so I'm glad you mentioned the Democratic Party, because you would agree with me. Recently, there was a recent poll that came out that showed they had like a 20% approval rating. And what I would say to that is that they are not, listening to their constituents. They are not following their constituents. Their constituents.
Oh, yeah, because the same billionaires they're yelling about that bought off Trump are the same billionaires buying them off. That's why everyone thinks the oligarchy tour is such a joke, because it's like, you guys have J.B. Pritzker. You have just as more billionaire money than the Republicans do.
No, I disagree with that. You have to agree with me that Elon Musk is literally the world's richest man, and he is literally like the wallet for Donald Trump.
Billionaires supported Kamala.
And I guarantee you, every single billionaire that was supporting Kamala pales in comparison to what is the value under Elon Musk. I guarantee you that.
Please, they get the same money from the same oligarchs. That's why it's falling on deaf ears. It's like, oh, let me give this speech about how bad the oligarchs are. Let me go get a check from Goldman Sachs for giving a 20-minute speech.
If you're going to complain, I mean, it sounds like you are agreeing with me, though, on Elon Musk, though, right? Like, you would agree with me with Elon Musk having the...
Oh, sure, I agree with you there, but it's also very hypocritical then to just run around the country yelling about it after they took millions and millions of dollars from Elon Musk themselves in previous cycles.
I think you would actually be surprised at how many people would... not really agree with what you're saying on this, because I think there's a lot of people, and I've been on online spaces for the past 6 years, and they have all, even with Joe Biden, and the one thing that the left does not like is they do not like Joe Biden. I actually still believe this to this day. I think that people who voted for Joe Biden on the left only voted for Joe Biden for the simple fact there's
The media told them to.
No, I wouldn't say the media, but what I would say is because of the fact that Donald Trump was such a divisive figure, and we also had right after there was a lot of events that took place in 2020 that some I can't talk about on TikTok, but there was also the BLM stuff that happened. They rallied around that. They only voted in Joe Biden because he wasn't Donald Trump. Joe Biden was and this is why you have a lot on the left that are like, I don't really support Joe Biden, but Joe Biden did do some things that were pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where, like, we don't really agree with some of the things, and they don't like the establishment as well. The left doesn't like the establishment Dems
But then
that
they
are out
run
there.
out and vote for Joe Biden in the primary. The
because
most establishment bought-off figure they could find. Joe Biden's the reason why you cannot file bankruptcy on student loans. And then they really thought that, yes, when he was a senator, he was the one that pushed, and he was also the one that got the legislation passed as a senator to make sure they could garnish your Social Security on student loans. And then these idiots thought that he was going to get rid of student loan debt. Please.
No, so I mean, look, well, first of all, he tried. That's the whole reason why we saw.
No, he didn't. He made it fail on purpose. He knew he would do it in a way.
You
that
got to
would
provide
fail
some
on
kind of evidence to suggest that he tried to make it fail on purpose.
Oh, I mean, because of all the millions he received from credit card companies and banks that he went to do that?
That's correlation does not equal causation. I would agree.
Oh, okay, so then with Elon Musk, correlation does not mean causation.
There's a little difference there. And then the reason why
No,
there is,
correlation
hold on. Just because Elon Musk is sitting by the president, I would agree with you. That in and of itself is not an exhibit of some kind of corruption or anything of that nature. However, what is a direct actual link is when Elon Musk goes and tries to campaign for somebody that is very patently pro MAGA, essentially, in Wisconsin, I believe it was. Putting it to the tune of like what, 1 billion, or not 1 billion. It was like 100, was it $1 billion? How much was
Please, that woman received a bunch of billionaire money too.
Okay, hold on. We're talking about Elon Musk specifically right now.
No,
We are.
You can't sit there and talk about Elon Musk and then turn a blind eye to her.
Okay, let's backtrack a little bit to our conversation though, right? Because earlier you said I was using correlation equals causation with Elon Musk, and I provided evidence right now, and you're like, well, whoa, let's not talk about Elon Musk. No, we're going to talk about Elon Musk, and that's what I'm trying to tell you is if you look at Elon Musk, he put money into that campaign for that pro-MAGA Supreme Court justice. So again, when we sit here and talk about the influence of Elon Musk, yeah, there's a direct causation, right? That Trump is, and I wholly believe this as well, because we can look at the fact of the last year's elections where he put massive amounts of money through the America PAC, by the way, into Donald Trump's campaign. So Donald Trump is absolutely using Elon Musk as a wallet for any kind of Republican that steps out of line. Why do you think Republicans don't want to step out of line right now? because Donald Trump has Elon Musk right by him. Elon Musk has the money and wealth and capability fully with the America PAC to get rid of any kind of dissenter.
Okay, I'll give you a great example. So Kamala Harris, she was for Medicare for All in 2020. She gets over $700 million from United Healthcare. All of a sudden, she's against it.
Let me see that. I gotta look that.
Look it up on Open Secrets. Type in United Healthcare.
So, wait, you said that because she received the $700 million from United Healthcare, that all of a sudden that is why she was for or against Medicare for All?
I mean, this thing's pretty convenient. I mean, you can't sit there and talk about oligarchs and then take money from oligarchs and then switch positions. Like, why does someone switch on Medicare for All on a dime like that?
So let's go to Open Secrets, United Health Group. They've actually donated $211,000 to the Republican National Committee.
How much do they give to Kamala Harris again?
They contributed $700,000. That is correct. But again, there was still $211,000 that was received. And keep in mind too that some of this, by the way, I believe, it's organizations themselves cannot contribute to candidates and party committees. So what this was, it was from individuals. That's why it literally says from individuals $742,000, and even for Republicans, it was $211,000. The only one from organization was the National Republican Congressional Committee, and that was $30,000. There was about 110,000 over the course of this is cycle of 2024 that was given to Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, and Democrat Lieutenant Governors Association. But that's from the organization in and of itself. That $700,000 number did not come from United Healthcare. It came from their employees.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So yeah, I mean, so they're bought off by the same oligarchs at the end of the day. So I just, and when I hear, I think like I said, going back to that 20%, I mean, that's why when we see them taking PAC money, billionaire money, and then they're just like, oh, oligarchs. Okay, that's fine.
Well, no, I mean, like I said, I think that the left, generally speaking, is still against billionaires and stuff like that. They want to get money out of politics like that. I've not seen many leftists who really want to, that simp for billionaires. I think a lot of them actually don't like the fact that there's billionaires. In fact, we can look at Chuck Schumer as well, where they want to get rid of Chuck Schumer, who's probably received tons of money. And we're seeing some new candidates rise up. I think it's like AOC as well, Jasmine Crockett as well, that I don't believe have received quite a bit from billionaires, but I have to look at that to be exact. So, but yeah, hey man, we're I got one more caller I want to get in before I get off. But hey Troy, it was a great.
One more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
We go. When you were talking about the oil, so I just want to get on that one where you're like, oh well, Biden unleashed record amounts of oil. Yeah. So when Trump took office in Obama's last year, I think we were pumping about 10 million barrels. In Trump's second to last year, there was a dip because of COVID. I think we're up to about 13 million barrels.
Mm-hmm.
Then in Biden's last year, it went up to 13.5 million. So it's he just got one more little drop in. It really wasn't that much of a difference.
Hold on. I'm looking up U.S. field oil production. And when Joe Biden, I'm starting Zoom. I hate this Zoom so much. I'm looking at the EIA right now. Oh, I hate this little Zoom button. So December of 2024, it was 13,451, and at the peak in 2020 was 12,994. So here's the funny thing about this that you really haven't said much about, is that as of May 2020, it dipped down. Where was it when Joe Biden took office? That's what you should really look at, right? If you look at where Joe Biden took office in January, it was 11,152,000 barrels per day.
That was because we were in the middle of the C word and we weren't really. But if you look in 2019, the year before.
I mean, like I said, either way you look at it, Joe Biden produced more and he rallied U.S. field production of crude oil. Now, if you're asking me to point to a specific policy, I would believe he opened up some, but I have to look at it again. On some of his oil production policies. But as far as the data goes, it definitely increased. It was the highest that it had ever been under Joe Biden. So I'll let you get the last word in. I'll let you get the last word in, Troy. I got to get into the next viewer before
my last word is Democrats, they get mad and you take their slave labor away. That's my last word. They
All
hate
right.
it when you put tariffs on their sweatshops. They hate it when you take away their cheap labor from Mexico and Central America. They get mad when you take their slave labor away.
I'll let you have that last word, Troy. Thank you so much for jumping in, buddy. All right, let's go to the next guest. Let's bring in Coolero. By the way, guys, hey, look, do me a favor, guys. Hit that like button. If you're on my TikTok stream, let's hit that like button. Let's get that stream out there a little bit more. I'm probably going to go for about another 30 more minutes or so. YouTube, you guys out there, I see you on YouTube, y'all. What's the source? I don't care about oil policies. Wilson, the source is the EIA. Carrie said, overall, Trump and Elon are ridding corruption, and that is a fact. That's why I'm happier. When it turns out Trump and Elon are not getting rid of corruption, they're actually committing more corruption. All right, looks like Cool Arrow is not going to join in. That's okay. All right, Lay said, Colts are great. They build a sense of community. Go MAGA. Yeah. Guys, listen to me. Let's see. Let's look at TikTok here. Stay mad. Why would I stay mad? Big Country Troy, leave the conspiracies alone. They don't do much good for you, clearly. Yeah. What's up, Big Country? Hey, Big Country, I feel like I've seen you around on a few panels, by the way. Welcome in, though, guys. Welcome in. Vince, you're talking nonsense. I don't know what you're talking about. He said, this guy's talking like he is better with money than Trump. Honestly, I probably am better with money than Donald Trump. Who runs the EIA? Right now, who is the head of the EIA? Let's see. Who is head of EIA? Current head of the U.S. Energy and Information Administration is Stephen Nally, who is serving as acting administrator. He was appointed as deputy administrator in 2018. So there you go. He was appointed under Donald Trump and became acting administrator in January of 2025. So Donald Trump's appointee. Yep. There you go. So he was under the Joe Biden administration. It's a good thing I believe in facts. Then, yeah, facts don't care about people's feelings. So much corruption that they file no charges. Doesn't have to be actual, like, per se corruption. And even if there was, you're relying on, like, Pam Bondi's office to actually provide charges. Good luck. That's just not going to happen. So I wasn't talking to you. I was talking about them. Oh, got you, Cardi. I got you. Okay, guys, look. We got 10,000 likes on TikTok. I think all my viewers on TikTok, I appreciate every single one of you guys. There's not a whole lot left. There's not a whole lot of callers that kind of called in yet. And it's getting late. I got to do some homework and stuff as well. So, but I appreciate every single one of you guys on TikTok that called in. I want to make sure I call in a little bit. I start live a little bit earlier with you guys on Monday. And we'll be doing it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Okay. So, but YouTube, guys, everyone, make sure you follow me. Please hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. TikTok, I'm going to let you guys go first. I appreciate every one of you guys. Make sure you hit that follow button. If you're not following me already, make sure you hit a like on one of my videos too. You want to, show some love. All right, guys, take care. Y'all are great, and y'all have a great time. All right? All right, so YouTube. There you go. I told you I was going to do a TikTok debate. It was tough, but you know what? That was actually a lot smoother than I thought it was going to be, okay? I'm exhausted. Debating is exhausting, and I started this thing at about 7:30, and now it's been about 2.5 hours. So it's been pretty crazy. How galactic stupid you must be. I'm pretty good. But anyways, I'm going to bounce out. I'm going to bounce out, guys. It's been great talking to you guys. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification bell if you haven't already. I will see you guys on Monday.